Chapter 1. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of water dripping echoed in the dark passage, causing Tenseigan to unconsciously tighten the robe on his body. He hated it here. The dark passage in front of him seemed to lead straight to hell, which always made him think of all kinds of bad things. But the one-eyed viper on his shoulder made him dispel the idea of turning around and leaving. He had no choice. At the end of the passage, Tenseigan pushed open the door. Behind the door was a well-equipped laboratory, and there was a figure standing inside. The figure turned around and said, "It's Jin-kun." Hearing this hoarse voice, Tenseigan's heart trembled, and he quickly bowed his head. "Orochimaru-sama." Orochimaru looked at Tenseigan thoughtfully, and after a long time, he said, "This laboratory will belong to you from now on." Feeling Orochimaru's gaze, Tenseigan did not dare to let his imagination run wild, and quickly bowed and replied, "Please rest assured, I will work harder." Orochimaru moved his eyes away and looked around the laboratory, and there was a hint of melancholy in his eyes. "I may have to leave the village, and you'll have to find your own materials in the future." "Yes." Tenseigan still nodded obediently, without the slightest hesitation, and the one-eyed viper, standing on his shoulder, lazily spat out its scarlet tongue. Glancing at Tenseigan one last time, Orochimaru did not say anything more and directly left with a teleportation technique. With the departure of Orochimaru, the huge and gloomy chakra that filled the laboratory slowly subsided. Phew! Tenseigan breathed a sigh of relief. Recently, Orochimaru's aura had become colder and colder, as if there was a smell of blood. Even if Tenseigan was only reporting the progress of the experiment from a distance, he would feel extremely uncomfortable. Fortunately, these difficult days seemed to be over. However, on second thought, Tenseigan had some doubts. According to the vague memories from his previous life, Orochimaru seemed to have been raided by 3 generations Naruto's secret laboratory and was caught red-handed. That was why he was forced to defect. However, judging from Orochimaru's behavior just now, it seemed that he had already planned to defect and was ready to take action at any time. What exactly went wrong that caused Orochimaru to take the initiative to defect? Is it because of me? After combing through everything that happened in the past, Kuroto still couldn't figure out the reason, but Orochimaru's defection is ultimately a good thing for him. As for whether Orochimaru defected voluntarily or passively, it doesn't make any sense for him to delve into it. Tenseigan's feelings towards Orochimaru were complicated. If it weren't for Orochimaru's protection, Tenseigan knew that he would not have survived the war so easily. After all, 7 out of 10 of his classmates had died on the battlefield. Even a genius like Kakashi had almost lost his life on the battlefield, and in the school's team battles, he couldn't even take one of Kakashi's attacks. Living in this world, being weak was the original sin. It had been more than 10 years since Tenseigan traveled to this world, but until today, it was still difficult for him to adapt to this ninja world full of killing. This was also one of the reasons why he took the initiative to seek refuge with Orochimaru. When it came to combat talent, he was far behind his peers, especially when it came to life and death. His reaction was always slower than others. Sometimes, he really admired the ninjas of this world. They often had the ability to kill at the age of 6 or 7. It was common for them to go to the battlefield at the age of 10. Even Kakashi, at the age of 12, was already a jonin who had killed countless enemies. Tenseigan didn't have this talent. Fortunately, he was born in the Hyuga clan and was born with the Byakugan. With the help of the Byakugan, he was able to survive several dangerous situations on the battlefield. But luck wouldn't always favor him. Watching his classmates die one by one, Tenseigan resolutely sought refuge with Orochimaru. He had to survive first. Surviving was the most important thing. Tenseigan was not without his own advantages. With the good education in his previous life, his ability to understand was far better than the ninjas of the same age. Coupled with the natural advantage of the Byakugan, he quickly stood out in Orochimaru's laboratory and became a more important experimental assistant of Orochimaru and learned a lot of genetic technology from Orochimaru. Perhaps it was because he had experienced too many deaths. Orochimaru had become very obsessed with the mystery of life in the later stages of the war. The most intuitive reaction was that Orochimaru no longer cared about the three generations, no longer adhered to the low moral bottom line, and began a large number of cruel and bloody human experiments. Along with this, Orochimaru also developed a strong interest and would release Byakugan and Sharingan. Hyugin's initiative to seek refuge made it easier for Orochimaru to study the secrets of the Byakugan. So in terms of guidance to Hyugin, Orochimaru did his best. The two sides hit it off, so there was the scene just now. Of course, the reason why Hyugin dared to seek refuge with Orochimaru was that he knew that it wouldn't take long for Orochimaru's attention to the forbidden techniques of the village, such as Edo Tensei and Yamada no Jutsu. In addition, he had the protection of the caged bird, so he didn't have to worry about Orochimaru directly carrying out human experiments on him. Yes, the caged bird is indeed a kind of protection for the current Hyugen. Or to be more precise, for all the weak and struggling Hyuga clansmen, the caged bird is not a prison, but a kind of protection. Because of its existence, the Hyuga clansmen avoid many covetous eyes inside and outside the village. As for the other reason for seeking refuge with Orochimaru, that is the Tenseigan. With Hyugin's mediocre talent, apart from the Tenseigan, he really can't think of any other way for him to turn over and control his fate in his own hands. As for the immortal technique, even Orochimaru found it difficult to master it, let alone him. In fact, not to mention Hyugin's mediocre talent, even the genius of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga in his previous life's memory, was also a sad character who died inexplicably. The Byakugan is indeed in the Genin, Chunin, and even Jonin stage, which gives the Hyuga clan an unparalleled advantage. But once it rises to the Kage level, or even the Super Kage level, the advantage of the Byakugan is not so obvious. And for the Hyuga clan who specializes in soft fist, it is really powerless to use soft fist to fight against enemies at the level of Susanoo, Jinchuriki, Senjutsu, etc. Therefore, the Tenseigan is almost the only hope for the Hyuga clan to intervene in the battle of the Super Kage level. This is also something that Hyugen has been thinking about since the beginning of his journey. Chapter 2. According to the vague memory of his previous life, the Tenseigan is an upgraded version of the Byakugan, which is comparable to the Rinnegan. And as far as Hyugen knows, there are two ways to evolve the Tenseigan. The first is like Otsutsuki Sarai, combining the bloodline on the moon with the bloodline of the Hyuga clan on the earth, thus evolving the Tenseigan. The second is to fuse a large number of Byakugan. This first method, Hyugen directly ruled out. He is not a member of the Hyuga clan, and he can't get the Byakugan of Otsutsuki Samurai's bloodline on the moon. In the second method, because of the caged bird, the Byakugan of the branch will be destroyed instantly after leaving the body or dying, so it is impossible to collect enough Byakugan by relying on the Hyuga clan alone. Neither method seems to work, but from the second method, Hyugen has a new idea. Whether it is Byakugan or Sharingan, all Kekkei Genkai are actually just a concrete manifestation of genes. If it is impossible to collect enough Byakugan, then is it possible to start from the genetic aspect by collecting a large number of genes of the Hyuga clan and then fuse these genes to directly evolve the Byakugan into the Tenseigan from the inside out at the genetic level? Based on this bold conjecture, Hyugen focused on learning genetic technology from Orochimaru. And through continuous learning and observation, Hyugen made an amazing discovery. That is, there are 33 sets of special gene sequences in all the genes of the Hyuga clan. Through further observation, Hyugen also found that different clansmen have different numbers of the 33 sets of special gene sequences in the activated state. As far as Hyugen himself is concerned, only 1733 of the 33 sets of special gene sequences in his body are in the activated state, while 116 of the special gene sequences are not in the activated state. The other dozen or so Hyuga clansmen he has collected are similar. Only some of the 33 sets of special gene sequences are in the activated state. This discovery further confirms Hyugen's guess. Kuroto even suspects that if all 33 sets of special gene sequences in the body can be activated, then every Hyuga clansman can evolve their Byakugan into Tenseigan. In an instant, this thought spread wildly in Hyojin's mind. Thanks to the blessings of the war, Hyojin, who was arranged by Orochimaru in the field hospital, easily collected a large number of genes of the Hyuga clan. After screening and comparing hundreds of genetic samples, he successfully extracted the special gene sequence of 416 in the activated state. Counting the 1733 special gene sequences in Kuroto's own body, he only lacks the first 3 sets of the 33 sets of special gene sequences, the number 13 of the 33 sets of special gene sequences in his hand. Hyojin had already collected enough genes from the branch clan, but he didn't have the 3 special gene sequences of number 13 that had been activated. Hence, he naturally turned his gaze to the ancestral clan. But the ancestral clan rarely goes to the battlefield in person. Even if they go to the battlefield, they are often heavily protected. It is not something that a ninja at the level of Hyojin can easily come into contact with. Therefore, he has not been able to get the ancestral clan's gene samples. For this reason, he had to ask Orochimaru to take action. Orochimaru did not refuse Hyojin, but even if Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, wants to steal the ancestral clan's gene, it is not an easy thing. Things dragged on for more than a year, and the experiment was forced to be interrupted. Although distressed, Hyojin knows that he is just a small person struggling to survive. If he wants to change his fate, he can only rely on himself to find opportunities. He can't wait for a pie to fall from the sky. But just when Hyojin put his mind on Hinata, who was about to be born, he never thought that this time, when Orochimaru said goodbye to him, he actually sent a piece of ancestral clan's flesh and blood. While processing the flesh and blood of ancestral clan's flesh and blood, Hyojin thought in his heart, Orochimaru's defection should be a matter of a few days, but not only did he not mean to take me away, but he also sent me the experimental materials I urgently need before leaving. What is his intention? Does he want me to stay in the village and be a spy? Whether it is Orochimaru's recent reaction or based on the vague memory of his previous life, Hyojin can conclude that at this time, Orochimaru has little interest in Byakugan. At this time, Orochimaru still sent him the experimental materials he urgently needed. Obviously, it was not for Byakugan's research, but to appease him. Thinking of this, Hyojin secretly laughed at himself. It seems that the caged bird is not completely without benefits. There is no doubt that the decisive reason why Orochimaru chose to let Hyojin stay in the village was because of the caged bird on Hyojin's forehead. Because the branch family does not have the qualification to defect. Once it defected, the caged bird could directly kill Hyojin. Naturally, Orochimaru was not interested in taking away a useless body. As the experiment progressed, Hyojin collected his messy thoughts and focused his attention on the experiment. The flesh and blood tissue sent by Orochimaru is very energetic. If Hyojin did not guess wrong, this is probably the flesh and blood tissue of the patriarch Hyuga Hayashi, and it is also the gene that Hyojin most wants to obtain at present. Because the flesh and blood tissue is very fresh, the process of gene extraction is abnormally smooth, and after comparison, he was surprised to find that 28 of the 33 sets of special gene sequences of Hyuga Hayashi were activated, including the 13 sets of special gene sequences he needed the most. There are as many as 28 sets of special gene sequences in the activated state, as expected of the patriarch. At the thought of Hyuga Hayashi's strength close to the Kage level, Hyojin immediately felt relieved. Hyuga Hayashi, who is in his prime, is undoubtedly the strongest person in the Hyuga clan. Such a strong person has the best genes in the family, which is a reasonable thing. Putting these emotions aside, Hyojin concentrated on extracting the 3 sets of special gene sequences in the activated state of 13 that he dreamed of. At this point, all the special gene sequences that Hyojin lacks in the activated state of 116 have been collected. Whether I can change my fate or not, it all depends on this. Joy, expectation, anxiety, hesitation, All kinds of emotions surged in his heart in an instant, making Hyojin a little confused for a while. He wanted to roar to the sky. He wanted to wantonly vent the depression and fear that had been his heart for so many years. But the one-eyed viper on his shoulder made him dispel all these thoughts. After a light sigh, Hyojin restrained all kinds of emotions one by one. Immediately afterward, he quietly put the extracted Geno fluid into a small thermostatic bottle, then took out a scroll and sealed the thermostatic bottle inside. The defection of Orochimaru will inevitably cause a shock in the village. Chapter 3. Early the next morning, Hyojin, who was doing morning exercises, heard the rumor that the patriarch was attacked, which also confirmed that the flesh and blood tissue sent by Orochimaru yesterday was indeed Hyuga Hayashi's. Although Kuroto had already guessed it, he still couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he thought about how Orochimaru could easily injure the strongest person of the Hyuga clan. Although there was definitely an element of sneak attack, Kuroto couldn't help but feel disappointed. In Hyojin's own feelings, it is too difficult for a member of the Hyuga family to reach the level of Sannin through regular training. What's more, when it comes to talent, Hyojin obviously belongs to the mediocre category, which can be seen from the number of activation of his special gene sequences. For ordinary Hyuga clansmen, there are generally about 20 groups of 33 groups of special gene sequences in the state of activation, and outstanding people like Hyuga Hayashi can even reach 28 groups, while Hyojin himself only has 17 groups in the state of activation, which is obviously lower than the average level in the family. If it goes step by step, Tokubetsu Jonin may be the end of Hyojin's life. Regarding the specific details of the attack on Hyuga Hayashi, the Hyuga family is very secretive. Hyojin guessed that Hyuga Hayashi may have been aware of the identity of Orochimaru when he was attacked, and Orochimaru is a disciple of the three generations. One of the Sannin not only has a high position of power, but also has a sensitive identity. So in the face of such a difficult problem, the Hyuga family must have not reached a consensus and naturally kept their mouth shut. Orochimaru dared to make a move against the patriarch, so obviously he isn't afraid of exposing his identity. This also confirms my guess that Orochimaru has indeed completed the preparations for his defection and is ready to act at any time. After a little thought, Hyojin is more convinced that Orochimaru is about to defect. The defection of Orochimaru has advantages and disadvantages for Hyojin. The advantage is naturally that a mountain is removed from him, and the disadvantage is that there is one less thigh to shelter him. Those who know that I participated in the human experiment, except for Orochimaru, all died in the war. As long as nothing happens to Orochimaru, the village should not be able to find me. Several people who joined Orochimaru at the same time as Hyojin died in the war. After transferring to the rear, because of the special nature of Byakugan, Hyojin has been experimenting in an independent laboratory, so he has no intersection with other researchers under Orochimaru. Except Orochimaru himself, no one knows the experiment project he's responsible for. After checking all the hidden dangers in his heart, Hyojin continued his morning exercise quietly, as if everything had nothing to do with him. In the next few days, the village was calm, until the third night, an Umbu wearing a fox mask suddenly appeared at Hyojin's home and took him to a temporary base of the Umbu. The base was located in the northwest corner of the village, with a large area and very strict security. Hyojin found that there were as many as 7 or 8 squads of Umbu guards. After being taken into a single room, Hyojin frowned slightly. The house was very small, without any furniture, and a strong iron fence was installed outside the house. Not only that, but there was also an Umbu guard outside the fence. Such an arrangement is more appropriate to call it a temporary prison than a temporary base. There is no doubt that the Umbu directly under Naruto can be so mobilized. It means that Orochimaru should have officially defected, and the time may be today or even tonight. With the talent of Byakugan, Hyojin calmly observed everything in the temporary prison. Hyojin was not the first batch of ninjas to be detained here, nor was he the last. After him, there were still many ninjas who were detained here. Without exception, All the ninjas who were detained were Orochimaru subordinates. There were hundreds of people in total, and several of them were even well-known elite jonin in the village. However, this is not unusual. In the war, Orochimaru has served as the commander of many troops. Over the years, it is not surprising that there are hundreds of old subordinates. After all, Orochimaru isn't qualified to compete with Yondaime-sama for the position of Hokage. If he doesn't even have hundreds of subordinates, then Orochimaru won't be able to compete with Yondaime-sama for the position of Hokage. Hundreds of prisoners and a similar number of guards made the makeshift prison noisy. Not everyone is like Hyojin and knows the whole story. Among the hundreds of Orochimaru's subordinates, many of them did not know about Orochimaru's defection, so they showed great dissatisfaction and indignation at being detained here inexplicably. It was not until 3 generations appeared that the noise gradually subsided. Now that Yondaime-sama has just taken over, many of the affairs in the village are still managed by Sandaime-sama. And even in the eyes of many ninjas, Sandaime-sama is still habitually regarded as a Hokage. Under the leadership of 3 generations, the screening work quickly began. The first to be screened and examined were undoubtedly the elite jonin with good strength. And as for the chunin like Hyojin who was temporarily promoted in the war, it will certainly not be taken care of for a while. 3 days passed in a flash. Although he is self-aware and knows that a chunin like him is promoted to meet the needs of the war, his actual strength is only at the level of a senior genin, and he will not be valued too much. But after being detained for 3 days and no one asked, Hyojin's dissatisfaction slowly accumulated in his heart. There is no doubt that the screening work of the village did not go well. Many detainees did not believe that Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, would defect, so they did not cooperate with the investigation. And on whether to use torture, there are also differences in the village's high level. After all, it is just a simple interrogation. It is difficult to distinguish which of the detainees participated in Orochimaru's human experiments, and which are the undercover agents left by Orochimaru. It must be known that these detained ninjas have undergone rigorous interrogation training, and they have just experienced the baptism of war. They're not rookies who have just come out of the society. However, once torture was used, the implications would be too great. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people being detained, but hundreds of people. Because of Orochimaru's defection, it is obviously not a wise choice to torture hundreds of heroes who have just won the war for the village. On the 5th day of Hyojin's detention, Danzo appeared in the temporary prison. Danzo visited the detained jonin one by one, and no one knows what they talked about. In short, when Danzo left, he took most of them with him. They were bewitched by Danzo and joined the route. There is no need to think about it. Hyojin already guessed the result. If they can't be interrogated one by one, then these detained jonin will undoubtedly be the biggest unstable factor in the village. So allowing Danzo to recruit them into the route is the village's only choice. Obviously, these jonin who are being held in custody have expected their situation in the village. As the former subordinates of Orochimaru, the possibility of being accepted by Yondaime-sama is very small. And 4 generations is still so young. Maybe he can be in power for 20 or 30 years if they don't find a backer in time. They feel that their days in the village will not be good, so joining the route, independent of 4 generations, is their best choice. In the next few days, there are also people from the route who invited Hyojin to join the route, but Hyojin politely refused. In his opinion, even if he defected, it is better than joining the route, a precarious scapegoat organization that specializes in doing dirty work. Fortunately, the people from the route didn't embarrass Hyojin. After being refused, they happily left. Chapter 4. 1 week later, at the main entrance of the village, a girl was carefully sorting out the luggage on Hyojin's body. From the girl's white eyes, it can be seen that she is the same as Hyojin, a member of the Hyuga clan, and her age is similar, but her delicate face is slightly wrinkled, and she looks a little worried. Hyojin, who was looking at the distant Naruto rock, smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's just a normal change of guard." The girl nodded slightly, then took out a new pair of goggles from her waist bag and handed it to Hyojin. Hyojin glanced at the girl and didn't say much, and put the goggles into his waist bag. In fact, from a long time ago, Hyojin has been wearing goggles like the obsidian, but the goggles he bought have darker lenses, just like sunglasses. The reason why he did this is not only to protect his eyes, but also to cover up his identity as a member of the Hyuga clan on the battlefield, to avoid being targeted by the enemy. Secondly, it is also to cover up the Tenseigan that may appear in the future. After all, in terms of appearance, there is still a certain difference between Tenseigan and Byakugan. The girl is undoubtedly worried that the old goggles on Hyojin's head will be broken, and it is difficult to buy a new replacement at the border, so she bought a new pair for Hyojin as a spare. At this time, a middle-aged ninja not far away waved his hand and shouted, "Time is up, let's go." Hyojin patted the girl's shoulder when he heard the words. "Yui, I'm leaving, don't worry about me. Maybe I will be back soon." The girl named Yui nodded gently, but the worry on her face couldn't be concealed. Finally, Hyojin looked at the distant Naruto rock. This time, the storm of Orochimaru's defection, the village became the biggest loser. Orochimaru defected and Jiraiya chased after him. So far, the famous Mysanin have all left the village. Orochimaru had lost the support of the village, but he had also gotten rid of the village's constraints. It was a win-win situation, and Danzo, who had absorbed most of the forces of Orochimaru, was undoubtedly the biggest winner. Hyojin even suspected that Danzo had grasped part of the results of Orochimaru's human experiments through this absorption, laying the foundation for stealing the Sharingan and Hashirama cells in the future. However, all of this was no longer important to Hyojin. The leaders of the village had reached a consensus that all the former subordinates of Orochimaru, like Hyojin, who had not been absorbed by the roots, would be transferred to the frontier. Simply put, he was banished to the border, far away from the village. Coming to the side of the middle-aged ninja, Hyojin looked at the companions around him. Including himself, there were a total of 12 ninjas, divided into 3 squads. Except for the 3 captains, the remaining 9 members were all former subordinates of Orochimaru. The destination of the team is a border post at the junction of a land of fire and a land of wind. As soon as he left the village, Hyojin activated the Byakugan. As if entering a war zone, he was on full alert. This is not Hyojin making a fuss, but he had a profound lesson. Just a few months ago, he was attacked less than 10 miles away from the village. The entire team that escorted the wounded from the front line back to the village suffered heavy casualties. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the village's support, his name would have been on the memorial tablet. The cruel war taught Hyojin a lot of things. Although the war has become a thing of the past, some habits are still difficult to change in a short time. Kuroto was not the only one who raised his vigilance. The other ninjas who traveled with him also raised their vigilance after leaving the village, except for one person. Glancing at the thin figure at the back of the team, Hyojin sighed. If there is anyone in the village who is most unwilling to believe that Orochimaru defected, it is undoubtedly Mitarashi Red Bean, who fell behind Hyojin. Almost overnight, Red Bean changed from a disciple of the Sannin, the rising star of the village, to a prisoner. After a few weeks of imprisonment, she was sent to the border with Hyojin, completely away from the center of the village's power. Just from her empty eyes and dull expression at the moment, it can be seen that she still can't accept that her teacher, one of the Sannin, Orochimaru, will betray the village. This kind of collapse of faith may not be able to recover in her life. Withdrawing his gaze from Anko's body, Suijin carefully looked at the ninjas who were traveling with him. Among the 12 people, only the middle-aged ninja leading the team is a Jonin, and the other 11, including Hyojin, Red Bean, and others, are Chunin. It can be said that this team still has a certain combat effectiveness. As long as they do not encounter an ambush team composed of Jonin, there will be almost no safety problems along the way. What's more, the war is over, and the probability of enemy Jonin appearing in my territory is very small. Sure enough, as Hyojin expected, there was no trouble along the way, and the team arrived at the border post smoothly. After entering the border post, the The team of 12 people was officially divided into 3 teams. Hyojin, Red Bean, and a Chunin named Oda were assigned to the team that led the Jonin. The country of fire and the country of wind are not bordered, and there are small countries such as the country of water and the country of rain in between, but these small countries actually have no effect on isolation. The border post where Hyojin is located is responsible for a border of about 40 miles. On one side of the post is the edge of the forest, and on the other side is the endless sea of sand. In this way, Hyojin lived a boring life of patrolling back and forth in the desert. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. All the news about the village has been cut off, and Hyojin at the border seems to be isolated from the world, patrolling, guarding, and resting all day long. During this time, he can feel that the team leader has been monitoring him and the other 9 Orochimaru old subordinates. So he behaved and did not make any unusual movements. He secretly speculated that such monitoring will not last long. Even if Mai is a big family, the manpower is not rich enough to monitor hundreds of ninjas for a long time, so the monitoring must have a time limit. Sure enough, soon after, the village sent 3 new Chunin to replace the previous 3 captains, including the middle-aged Jonin. At first, Hyojin thought that the village lifted the monitoring of himself and others, but after some observation, he found that the 3 new Chunin captains are all silent, giving people a cold feeling. These people are not ordinary Chunin. It didn't take long for him to realize that these 3 new captains are either Umbu or Root. Did an ordinary border outpost need 3 Umbu or Root members to be the captain? The answer is self-evident. So Hyojin's thoughts suddenly scattered. He doesn't know what happened in the village in the past 2 months, but he knows that danger has come. Chapter 5. In his impression, Otsutsuki Samurai on the Moon seemed to have a long adaptation period when he changed his eyes to evolve the Tenseigan. Because of this, Hyojin has not started the Tenseigan plan. But the situation is different now. Although Hyojin can't guess what the village is going to do, one thing he can be sure of is that danger is approaching. Taking advantage of a solo patrol, Hyojin came to a remote desert that he had selected long ago. After looking around for a while with Byakugan and confirming that there was no one around, he immediately printed and summoned the one-eyed viper that Orochimaru had left to monitor him. Bang! With a burst of smoke, the one-eyed viper wandered lazily in front of Hyojin and spat out a scroll from its mouth. Yes, the scroll containing the Geno fluid has been kept by this one-eyed viper. This is also a helpless move, because only in the belly of the one-eyed viper can Hyojin retrieve the precious Geno fluid at any time and anywhere through psychic arts. As for whether it will be intercepted by Orochimaru, there's no need to worry too much about this, because a long time ago, Hyojin had begun to store some messy experimental materials in the belly of the one-eyed viper. Orochimaru had also secretly checked several times and found that they were all worthless things, so he gradually stopped caring about it. In addition, Orochimaru had just defected not long ago. At this moment, he was still entangled with Jiraiya. He would certainly not be able to take care of Hyojin in a short time. After taking out the Geno fluid sealed in the scroll, Hyojin's face became dignified. There are too many uncertain factors in the evolution of the genetic level. The Geno fluid in front of him may be the key to changing his fate, or it may be a poison that will ruin his life. Without live experiments, there would be no data, so at the moment, Hyojin could not even estimate the probability of success. But he was running out of time, so he could only gamble. Whether he could control his own fate in the future, whether he could live with dignity and get rid of the helplessness of being ordered around, all depended on this bottle of Geno fluid. Without hesitation, Hyojin made up his mind and injected the Geno fluid into his body. Almost at the same time, Hyojin screamed in pain. Ouch! A bone-piercing pain. The pain was unbearable. After being a ninja for so long, Kuroto thought that his endurance was already very strong, and pain or something like that couldn't shake him at all. But it wasn't until this moment that he realized that pain could reach this point. Slowly, he felt the chakra in his body dissipating. Not good. The situation had gone out of his control, and he quickly used the remaining chakra to forcibly remove the psychic art and sent the one-eyed viper away. Almost at the same time that the one-eyed viper was sent away, his little chakra all collapsed, and then his body seemed to begin to collapse, and he felt that his flesh and blood seemed to be showing signs of melting. Why is this happening? In a strong sense of unwillingness, Hyojin's vision went black, and he fainted in the desert. After an unknown amount of time, Hyojin slowly opened his eyes and found that he was already in the outpost. On the side, Captain Naruchi Mitsui stared at Hyojin and asked with a cold face, "What happened? Why did you faint in the desert?" Hyojin was still a little confused at this moment, so he casually said, I don't know why." Naruchi Mitsui frowned. "Were you attacked? Who? Was it a sand ninja?" Hyojin shook his head. "No one attacked me. It was my own body that had a problem. I think I'm sick." Ninjas could also get sick, which was a very common phenomenon in the ninja world. Among them, Kekiai ninjas would even suffer from all kinds of strange blood diseases. Kimimaro and Itachi were typical examples. So although Naruchi Mitsui still had some doubts in his heart, seeing Hyojin's weak face, he did not continue to question him. After waiting for Naruchi Mitsui to leave, Hyojin carefully examined his body. After injecting the gene fluid, his body's violent reaction was far beyond his previous expectations, which also gave him a new understanding of the danger of activating the special gene sequence in his body. "In the end, I survived." While letting out a long sigh of relief, Hyojin couldn't help but feel a burst of fear. Although he didn't know the specific data, based on his personal experience, Hyojin felt that being able to survive the activation and reorganization of the special gene sequence was definitely a small probability event. This was because he clearly felt the feeling of his body on the verge of collapse during the activation and reorganization. That feeling was as if his body was disassembled into countless pieces and then reassembled again, which made him feel desperate. At the same time, this also made Hyojin deeply realize that he was still a layman in the field of genes. After calming his mind, Hyojin analyzed the effect of the gene fluid based on his own experience. Before, Hyojin's body almost collapsed, which was undoubtedly a reaction of the special gene sequence in his body being activated. In other words, the number of special gene sequences that were not activated, the number of times the body would undergo activation and reorganization. Hyojin lacked 16 groups, so he experienced a total of 16 activation and reorganization in the desert. Every activation and reorganization was like wandering before the gates of hell, and Hyojin walked before the gates of hell 16 times in a row. He was really lucky to be alive. With the activation of all 33 groups of special gene sequences in his body, Hyojin could feel that his body was completely different from before, and this change was still ongoing. The most intuitive manifestation was that he could feel that his chakra was constantly growing, as if there was no end to its growth. Getting out of bed, Hyojin slowly walked to the dressing mirror. Opening the goggles, he found that his originally pale eyes looked a little transparent, as if they contained stars, shining with a strange light. So beautiful! Even Hyojin himself couldn't help but be attracted. Just as he moved forward, wanting to see more clearly and more carefully, suddenly, a strong sense of dizziness enveloped him, and at the same time, there was a sharp pain in his eyes. After a while, the dizziness and pain gradually subsided. Slowly recovering, Hyojin held the wall and slowly got up. He understood that he couldn't use his eyes during the adaptation period, not even the simplest observation, so he closed his eyes and put on the goggles again. Lying back on the bed, Hyojin secretly thought. Chapter 6. In the evening, Red Bean and Oda came to Hyojin's room to visit him. As former subordinates of Orochimaru, Hyojin, Red Bean, and Oda can be said to sympathize with each other. In addition, they are close in age and are in the same squad, so the relationship between them is quite harmonious. After chatting for a while, Oda suddenly smiled and said, "Kuroto, This time you really got sick at the wrong time. Hyojin was a little puzzled. Why? Oda explained. Just now, Captain assigned a special task to me and Red Bean. If we can successfully complete it, maybe we can be transferred back to the village and no longer have to endure the sandstorm here. Special task? Hyojin was startled and immediately said, I wish you success in your task. For some reason, Hyojin suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart, but ninjas are not allowed to inquire about each other's tasks. So although he was suspicious, he didn't say anything. Oda patted Hyojin's shoulder and said with a smile, Don't worry, the village will not forget us excellent ninjas who have experienced the war. It won't be long before you will be transferred back to the village. For now, you can rest in peace and recuperate. Hyojin said, Be careful. After chatting a few more words, Oda and Red Bean left Hyojin's room. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Hyojin, who is still in the adaptation period, is still tortured by dizziness and stinging pain from time to time, but this kind of torture is not bitter, because every time the pain comes, it will be accompanied by the improvement of his strength. Although there is no accurate test, Hyojin secretly estimated that the amount of chakra's amount in his body at this time is more than 10 times that before the injection of genetic serum. There is no clear standard for the division of ninjas. The judgment of Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and even Kage will vary according to different environments and different eras. For example, Hyojin, before he was injected with the gene serum, he was actually just a senior Genin. Except for the most basic Sanjitsu, soft fist, as well as superficial summoning and sealing techniques, he hardly knew any other ninjutsu. But even so, he was still promoted to Chunin by the village and led the team to carry out several reconnaissance missions. But no matter what, there is still a vague standard that everyone agreed on. For example, ninjas who can perform E-class ninjutsu or use their own blood are considered to have reached the standard of a genin. If you can perform a C-class ninjutsu multiple times, you could be considered Chunin. Being able to perform B-class ninjutsu multiple times and proficient in one of ninjutsu, jinjutsu, taijutsu, or having a strong kekiai can be considered as a jonin. As for the Kage level, it is actually one of the strongest ninjas in the village, so in different eras, the concept of Kage level is also different. Because of this, chakra's amount has become one of the important criteria for judging the strength of a ninja. If Hyojin's strength can only be regarded as a genin before, then now his chakra's amount has obviously exceeded the level of ordinary chunin and is soaring towards the level of an ordinary jonin. After 3 days of adaptation, Hyojin can barely use his eyes. Through careful observation, he found that his eyes have become like a clear, sky-blue gem, shining with breathtaking brilliance, making people can't help but be immersed in it, unable to extricate themselves. At the same time, he found that the cage bird on his forehead still exists, but it seems to have lost its effect. This is also natural. The cage bird targets the Byakugan and all the brain nerves connected to the Byakugan, and now it is no longer the Byakugan in Hyojin's eye sockets, but the Tenseigan. So although the cage bird technique has not been destroyed, it has actually solved itself. Just when Hyojin was estimating how long the adaptation period of the Tenseigan will last, he suddenly felt a familiar chakra quickly approaching the outpost. Without thinking much, Hyojin quickly held the wall and walked out of his room. After a while, a thin figure rushed into the outpost. This figure is none other than Red Bean, who went out with Oda on a special mission a few days ago. At this time, Red Bean's complexion is extremely poor. Her face is almost bloodless, her body is covered with scars, and her breath is very chaotic. It seems that she has experienced a series of life and death battles. With the vigilance tempered in the war, Hyojin's hand has already reached into the ninja bag around his waist and took out a kunai when he judged that the person was Red Bean, and the Tenseigan under the goggles also bloomed with a magnificent light, searching for the pursuers that may be following behind Red Bean. But with just a slight glance, Hyojin found that there is no pursuer behind Red Bean, so he was relieved. At this time, other ninjas in the outpost also gathered around, either bandaging Red Bean's wounds or asking about the details of Red Bean's attack. Hyojin, who was on full alert on the side, with the unparalleled insight of the Tenseigan, noticed that when Naruchi Mitsui saw Red Bean, an inexplicable strange look flashed on his face. It seemed to be a complex expression mixed with surprise and anxiety. In just an instant, a bad guess emerged in Hyojin's heart. In fact, he has long thought of this possibility, but he has never dared to be sure, or he has always been unwilling and did not want to be sure. Subconsciously, Hyojin and Naruchi Mitsui opened a little distance. And Naruchi Mitsui's attention at this time was all on Red Bean. He did not notice Hyojin's abnormality. He just calmly asked Red Bean, "Did you complete the task?" Red Bean looked at Naruchi Mitsui coldly. "We were ambushed as soon as we arrived at the agreed place. It was a trap. Oda died on the spot. I barely escaped back after hiding in the desert for 2 days." Naruchi Mitsui heard this, and his face was slightly unnatural. "Maybe the spy we placed in the sand ninjas was exposed. So you were ambushed. I will report to the village." After that, Naruchi Mitsui left in a hurry, and Hyojin did not say anything. He silently helped Red Bean up. After returning to Red Bean's room, Red Bean suddenly asked Hyojin, "Were we abandoned by the village?" Being accepted as a disciple by Orochimaru, Red Bean is obviously not stupid. This so-called special task is full of strangeness, and she is naturally aware of it. Hyojin helped Red Bean bandage the wound and said, "Don't think about it. It is common for tasks to go wrong. You still have little experience." It seems that she was convinced by Hyojin. Red Bean did not say anything, and her expression returned to the former numb state. After dealing with Red Bean's injury and confirming that no enemy approached the outpost, Hyojin returned to his room. Chapter 7. In his heart, Hyojin has already realized this. Through the conversation between Naruchi Mitsui and Red Bean just now, he roughly judged that the so-called special task that Naruchi Mitsui gave to Oda and Red Bean should be to contact the spy placed in the sand. But how can the village send 2 Chunin who are still in the screening period to do this kind of secret task? Logically or emotionally, this didn't make sense. Therefore, Red Bean's intuition is right. This so-called special task is a trap. The village may really have abandoned the old subordinates of Orochimaru and want to clean them up one by one through reasonable means. Is it Danzo? Or 3 generations? Or 4 generations? The first target of Hyojin's suspicion is Danzo. Orochimaru's early defection, this time, has a lot of inside stories. It is difficult for Hyojin to judge what role Danzo played in it, but there is no doubt that Danzo is the biggest beneficiary of this defection. Judging from the argument that whoever benefits is behind the scenes, Danzo is likely to be the culprit behind Orochimaru's early defection. In this way, the relationship between Danzo and Orochimaru is likely to have been completely broken, so it is reasonable for Danzo to kill the old subordinates of Orochimaru who are unwilling to join the route. The suspicion of 3 generations can't be ruled out because 3 generations is the kind of person who can really do a lot of unimaginable stupid things for the so-called stability. This can be seen from the fact that he sat back and watched White Fan commit suicide, and in the future, in order to avoid becoming enemies with Cloud Village, he pressured the Hyuga family to kill Hyuga Richa and let Naruto, the orphan of 4 generations, grow up in the discrimination and abuse of the entire village, and so on. As for 4 generations, Hyojin felt that it shouldn't be him. This is not because he is superstitious about the character of 4 generations, but as a civilian ninja, 4 generations has neither the support of his own family nor the 3 generations have completely delegated power, so 4 generations should not have enough power to complete these arrangements. At the same time, with the age advantage of 4 generations, there was no need to rush to clean up the dissidents in the village. In short, no matter who was behind this purge, he had become the other party's target. Therefore, Hyojin knew that danger was hanging over his head and could come at any time. Time passed day by day. A week after the ambush of Red Bean, Hyojin finally passed the Tenseigan adaptation period safely. The dizziness and pain had completely disappeared, and what followed was an overall enhancement of vision. The Tenseigan has a part of the Byakugan's ability, and in terms of subtle insight, it is far better than the Byakugan. With just ordinary observation, Hyojin can roughly judge the other party's next move by the flow of chakra in the other party's body, as well as the contraction and contraction changes of the other party's muscles. In addition to the insight, the other biggest change is the chakra's amount. Conservatively estimated, Hyojin speculated that his chakra's amount is between 40 to 50 times before the injection of the genetic serum, which has exceeded the chakra's amount of ordinary Jonin. In addition, he also faintly felt that his body had awakened some other abilities, but he was in the outpost, and his every move was monitored by Captain Naruchi Mitsui, so it was not convenient to explore them one by one. Suppressing his excitement, Hyojin finally waited for an opportunity to go out alone a few days later. With a light shout, the yellow sand in the distance swarmed towards Hyojin's outstretched right hand like a flood from a broken dam. With a single thought, the yellow sand that was swarming towards him was blown far away, as though it had been hit by a hurricane. Looking at the yellow sand that came and went as he waved, Hyojin, who was in a remote desert, slightly raised the corner of his mouth. This move is a combination of Pain's Shinra Tensei and Ten Mammoth Tensei, and the principle is also attraction and repulsion. In the vague memory of Hyojin's previous life, Otsutsuki Samurai on the Moon also used this move. Since it is the ability of the Tenseigan, then this move will be called Rain Manipulation. After trying Rain Manipulation a few more times, as the initial excitement passed, Hyojin gradually discovered the shortcomings of his Rain Manipulation. That is, the effective range is only about 15 meters, and the further the distance, the weaker the effect. Suijin frowned as he gasped for air. Most of the attack ninjutsu above sea level can attack more than 20 meters. Some can even reach 50 meters, and the killing range of throwing weapons such as kunai and shurikens can easily exceed 20 meters. In other words, once the enemy pulls away, the current rain manipulation performed by Hyojin can only play some defensive and interference roles. The shortcomings of the small range were put aside for the time being. Hyojin, who was still gasping, found another shortcoming of himself, that is, the chakra amount that made him happy before. The chakra amount increased by 40 to 50 times, which made Hyojin very excited, but when he used rain manipulation several times in a row, he was surprised to find that his chakra was not enough. It was not until this moment that Hyojin realized. The increase of 40 to 50 times of chakra interfered with his objective judgment, causing him to misestimate his chakra amount. In fact, because his previous chakra amount was the standard level of a genin, it was too mediocre, so even if it increased by 40 to 50 times, the total amount was not exaggerated, it just exceeded the level of an ordinary jonin. It's a far cry from the ninjutsu that Kuroto imagined. He also has the Tenseigan, but Otsutsuki Tonari, who can play with the moon as a toy, is even more incomparable. And Hyojin has always regarded Otsutsuki Samurai as his own reference standard, but the reality gave him a hard blow. Why is this happening? What is the problem? Is my method of evolving the Tenseigan wrong? One question after another, Hyojin's heart surged. After being confused for a long time in doubt, anxiety, and even panic, he finally calmed down and changed his mind, and all the previous puzzles were solved. In the memory of the previous life, only Otsutsuki Samurai has the Tenseigan, so Hyojin subconsciously thought that as long as he has the Tenseigan, he will have the same strength as Otsutsuki Samurai. But on second thought, the Kekkei limit also varies from person to person. The same Byakugan, many of the peers of the Hyuga clan are stronger than Hyojin, and the same Sharingan. In front of Madara, the vast majority of Uchiha is like a small fish. Otsutsuki Samurai is the last only seedling on the moon, a veritable genius, enjoying all the inheritance left by Otsutsuki Himura on the moon, and his strength is at the Kage level without the Tenseigan. Such a character is really not comparable to Hyojin, who only has the genin level. After having the Tenseigan, Otsutsuki Samurai reached the level of the Super Kage level in one fell swoop, which is a matter of course. And Hyojin, who is not on the same starting line at all, wants to catch up with Otsutsuki Samurai's Super Kage level with a pair of Tenseigan alone is somewhat unrealistic. After understanding this, Hyojin tried the Tenseigan trick that Otsutsuki Samurai had used in his memory and found that he really couldn't enter the Tenseigan chakra mode. As for the trick that Otsutsuki Samurai used to cut the moon, as well as the truth-seeking ball and other tricks, it is even more impossible to talk about. Chapter 8. More than 10 years of living in another world has made the memory of his previous life alienated and blurred, so Hyojin really can't remember whether Otsutsuki Samurai needs to make hand seals to enter the Tenseigan chakra mode. If I need to make hand seals, what kind of hand seals should I make? What is the mode of operation of chakra in the body? In such doubts, Hyojin realized the awkwardness of the lack of inheritance. This is simply a treasure mountain, but can't enter it. Thinking of people like Obsidian, Nagato, Itachi, Four Generations, etc., these current or future people, Hyojin found that they have more or less received the careful guidance of the Kage-level powerhouse and received various inheritance. And he has nothing. Hyojin is not a person who feels sorry for himself. Since he found the problem, he will solve the problem. When it comes to the most suitable inheritance, it is naturally the inheritance of Hamura Otsutsuki on the moon, but Hyojin doesn't know the way to go to the moon at all. In addition, there is the existence of Otsutsuki Samurai on the moon and the giant Tenseigan formed by the fusion of a large number of Byakugan, so this inheritance can be ignored for the time being. The Hyuga family may have some hidden secret inheritance, which is worth Hyojin's attention. Orochimaru's research and development ability is one of the best in the world, so if he wants to improve his strength further, the connection with Orochimaru can't be broken. But the way of cooperation, Hyojin feels that it is necessary to change. Continuing to be a spy of Orochimaru, being a marionette without self-consciousness has no future. He must change his identity from a subordinate to a collaborator in order to benefit from it. This also involves a problem of strength. In a ninja world, the weak are not qualified to talk about cooperation with the strong. After completely adjusting his state of mind, Hyojin began to evaluate his current combat strength. In terms of chakra's amount, he has undoubtedly reached the level of a Jonin, and coupled with the unparalleled insight of the Tenseigan, as well as the gentle fist and the unpredictable rain wheel without any hand seals. If there is no accident, he feels that he is very likely to defeat a special Jonin, but if he faces a real Jonin, he will most likely die in the end. Of course, this was only for now. With the enrichment of experience and further development of the Tenseigan, Kuroto believes that it won't be long before his strength reaches the level of a Jonin or even an elite Jonin. At that time, he will be qualified to have a good talk with Orochimaru. After looking into the future, Hyojin pulled his thoughts back to the present. Now he is still in the village's cleansing plan, and his strength is far from reaching the point where he can arm wrestle with the village. So in the case of not exposing the Tenseigan, how to protect himself is his current top priority. As soon as he returned to the outpost, Naruchi Mitsui called Hyojin in front of him and said coldly, "You get ready. There's a mission tomorrow." Hyojin looked stunned. "What mission?" Naruchi Mitsui said, "I will personally lead the team. The specific mission, we will talk about it tomorrow on the road." Hyojin wanted to refuse, but after thinking for a while, he finally nodded. In fact, he also knows that because of his illness, he has escaped a round of cleansing. So now that he is cured, he can't deny it anymore. The next day, fully armed Hyojin and Naruchi Mitsui set off. Because Red Bean's injury has not healed, only the two of them participated in this operation. On the way, Naruchi Mitsui briefly explained the mission. Like the previous mission of Red Bean and Oda, it is also to meet the My Spy lurking in the Sand Crypsis village and retrieve the intelligence of the Sand Crypsis village collected by the spy. After listening to the mission introduction, Hyojin is 100% sure that this mission is a trap to clean himself. But his expression did not change. He just thought secretly in his heart, who will be the one to do it in the end? Is it the root? Or the umbu? Or is it the people of the Sand Crypsis? If it is the root, then the person in charge of the cleansing is most likely Danzo. And if it is the umbu, then it is most likely 3 generations. But if it is the Sand Shinobi, the situation is complicated. If it is the Sand Shinobi, then it means that the village and the Sand Crypsis have reached some kind of consensus. In other words, this is no longer an internal matter of the village, but a matter between the shinobi villages. The person behind the scenes is likely not a single person, but the entire my village. While galloping, Hyojin quickly analyzed the situation he was about to face in his mind. To deal with a Chunin promoted during the wartime, there is no need to send a Jonin. The other party should be a 4-person team composed of Chunin. Because I am from the Hyuga clan, the other party should not set up an ambush in advance. That will expose me in advance. The other party should attack from all directions after I arrive at the meeting point and launch a full-scale siege on me. Or they can disguise as a contact and take advantage of my unpreparedness to kill me. What role will this Naruchi Mitsui play? Will he just lead me into an ambush, or will he also participate in the siege? After having the Tenseigan, Hyojin's mentality has gradually changed. If he was just trying to survive before, then now he has more desire and ambition in his heart. It is also because of the Tenseigan that he is full of confidence. So after eliminating fear, confusion, and other negative emotions, he accurately analyzed the situation that he may face. After a long time, Naruchi Mitsui and Hyojin came to the meeting point, which is a desert full of gravel, and the surroundings can be seen at a glance. It is not a suitable meeting point. In the distance, a lonely figure stood, a little blurred in the wind and sand. Hyojin looked at it, and immediately found that the other party's body contains a lot of chakra. In terms of chakra's amount alone, it has far exceeded the level of Chunin. In addition, he also found that next to the figure, there seemed to be a few Sand Shinobi's bodies lying around. This strange scene made Kuroto feel a sense of danger. He immediately stopped and said in a deep voice, "Captain, something doesn't seem right." Naruchi Mitsui also frowned tightly at this moment. Obviously, the situation in front of him is a little different from what he expected, but he doesn't have the sharp insight of Hyojin. So through the wind and sand, he can neither judge the strength of the stranger, nor observe the few bodies looming in the sand under the stranger's feet. After hesitating for a while, Naruchi Mitsui ordered, "Go, let's go." Naruchi Mitsui is the captain. He gave the order, and Hyojin had no choice but to follow him slowly towards the stranger. After a while, the two came in front of each other. The stranger was wrapped in a grayish-brown cloak from head to toe. Even his face was covered with a cloth mask. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen. However, the look in those eyes made people feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if a beast was staring at its prey. At this time, Naruchi Mitsui found a few bodies in Sand Crypsis' clothes lying beside the stranger, and his face suddenly became embarrassed. "You? Who are you?" The stranger slowly lifted his hood, pulled off the cloth cover, tilted his head, and said with a playful face, "Oh, so they are waiting for you here." Chapter 9. Sasori of the Red Sand. Looking at the red-haired man in front of them, Naruchi Mitsui and Hyojin exclaimed at the same time. The identity of the other party is not unfamiliar to the two who have just experienced the war. Sasori of the Red Sand, a genius puppet master, one of the strongest ninjas in the Sand Crypsis, disappeared with the disappearance of 3 generations Kazekage, and was finally characterized as an S-class renegade ninja. He has appeared on the battlefield many times to collect ninja corpses, and has several records of killing elite Jonin ninjas. His strength is so strong that even the Sand Crypsis once gave up on hunting him down. He is a trouble that the 5 great ninja villages do not want to provoke. Sasori put one hand on his waist and chuckled. "Have I been recognized? Well, ninjas of Mai, since we have met, help me try this newly made work of art." After that, Sasori took out a scroll with the word 3 written on it. Bang, after a burst of white smoke, a human puppet appeared in front of Naruchi Mitsui and Hyojin. Looking at the black iron sand floating around the human puppet, the stunned Naruchi Mitsui trembled and said, "This is magnetic release? 3 generations Kazekage?" Hyojin was also very surprised, but he was not surprised by the puppet of 3 generations Kazekage, but by meeting a strong person of Sasori's level in this damn place. It is difficult for Hyojin to accurately judge Sasori's current strength, but at least above the elite Jonin, he is an enemy that he can't deal with at present. So the moment he saw Sasori, there was only one thought left in his mind, and that is how to save his life. The human puppet controlling 3 generations Kazekage slowly floated up, and Sasori smiled and said, "This is my most satisfactory work so far. Everyone enjoy my art." As soon as Sasori's voice fell, the iron sand floating around the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations turned into fine needles all over the sky and shot towards Naruchi Mitsui and Hyojin like raindrops. As Naruchi Mitsui flew back, he held 3 kunai with detonation talismans in each hand and shot them towards the sky full of iron needles. Hyojin, who was lagging behind, took the opportunity to hide behind Naruchi Mitsui and quickly retreated. Boom, boom, boom. The explosion of the 6 detonating talismans stirred up a cloud of thick smoke in the Gobi Desert. Seeing that the explosive talisman had barely blocked the iron needle, Naruchi Mitsui glanced at Hyojin coldly, then fled towards the direction of the outpost without saying a word. Without even saying a word, he ran away alone. It was obvious that Naruchi Mitsui had shed all pretense of cordiality and no longer hid his malice toward Hyojin. Hyojin naturally no longer had any scruples and fled in the other direction. Seeing the two of them flee after a little resistance, Sasori chuckled and jumped on the back of the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations. Then the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations turned the iron sand into 2 huge iron sand wings through magnetic dun and flew in the direction of Naruchi Mitsui's escape. Obviously, Naruchi Mitsui, the team leader, is the priority target of Sasori. He can fly. The corner of his eyes glanced at Sasori, who was flying with the help of the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations. Hyojin's heart suddenly sank. In the shinobi world, the ability to fly is a very huge advantage. Once you encounter a ninja with the ability to fly on the battlefield, you will often fall into an extremely passive situation. As far as the current situation is concerned, Hyojin running on the ground is certainly not as fast as Sasori flying in the sky. Suppressing the mixed thoughts, Hyojin calmly observed Sasori's movements while secretly analyzing his own situation. I saw the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations. Sasori will not let me go. The fact that 3 generations of Kazekage were made into puppets by Sasori should still be a secret. So in order to avoid trouble, Sasori will not let anyone who knows this secret go. In other words, the moment Sasori revealed the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations, Naruchi Mitsui and Hyojin have been listed on his kill list. The nearest outpost is nearly 2.5 hours away from here, and even if we arrive at the outpost, the ninjas stationed there will not be able to resist an enemy of the level of Sasori. I can't just think about escaping. I have to find a way to repel Sasori. Just as Hyojin was secretly pondering the countermeasures, he suddenly found that Naruchi Mitsui, who was running as fast as him, suddenly fell to the ground. What's going on? Slightly stunned, Hyojin immediately reacted. The iron needles just now were poisoned. The detonator that Naruchi Mitsui threw before did block a large number of iron needles. But there were still 1 or 2 iron needles that passed through the explosion and scratched Naruchi Mitsui's arm. Because they didn't hurt his vital parts, neither Naruchi Mitsui nor Hyojin cared too much. But now seeing Naruchi Mitsui suddenly fall, Hyojin immediately reacted, and according to the memory of his previous life, Sasori is indeed a master of poison. Without Naruchi Mitsui's restraint, continuing to escape will not only waste his stamina, but will only add to his embarrassment, so Hyojin decisively stopped. After stepping forward and executing Naruchi Mitsui, who was poisoned and incapacitated, Sasori leisurely came in front of Hyojin and said with a playful smile, "What? Did you give up on escaping?" Hyojin stared at Sasori. "I've always been curious. Why did you defect? With your strength and status, even if you want to be a Kazekage, it is not completely impossible, right?" Surprised by Hyojin's calmness, Sasori looked up and down and said with a smile, "Don't delay time. No one can save you." As Hyojin walked towards Sasori, he said to himself, "That's right. You even dare to plot against the 3 generations Kazekage, known as the strongest Kazekage. How can a mere sand Crypsis village be in your eyes?" Sasori did not answer, but slightly narrowed his eyes full of playfulness. He was really a little curious about what Hyojin, who was slowly approaching him, wanted to do. 19 meters, 17 meters, 14 meters. Hyojin, who looked calm on the surface, but was panicking inside, silently calculated the distance between himself and Sasori. At present, his only chance of winning was to use rain pull to attract Sasori's body, and then use a soft fist to seal Sasori's acupoints and control him. The effective range of rain pull was only about 15 meters, so he must get as close as possible to Sasori. When Hyojin approached a distance of about 11 meters, Sasori slowly raised his hands. The 3 generations Kazekage puppets connected by chakra lines shining with light blue light quickly floated up, and the iron sand around it also turned into iron spears. Knowing that he was close to the limit, Hyojin no longer hesitated, immediately stretched out his hands, and fully launched rain pull. At the moment when Hyojin raised his hand, the battle-hardened Sasori raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a sarcastic smile, and then manipulated the 3 generations Kazekage puppets to protect his front while retreating. In Sasori's view, Hyojin's move was nothing more than to launch some kind of ninjutsu to perish together. He had encountered this situation many times, so there was nothing to care about. The defensive ability of the 3 generations Kazekage puppets, Sasori, the producer, couldn't be clearer. Even the A-level ninjutsu was difficult to break the iron sand defense of the magnetic release, so those ninjas who tried to perish together with him eventually became a stroke on his record. This, in an instant, the corner of Sasori's mouth, which had not yet fully opened, suddenly froze. Accompanied by a loud whistling sound, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets in front of Sasori were sucked away by a powerful suction. The suction was so strong that it even broke the chakra lines in his hands that were connected to the 3 generations Kazekage puppets in an instant. Chapter 10. At this moment, there was only one thought left in Hyojin's mind. That is, it's really over this time. With the experience of a strong person like Sasori, once the surprise effect is lost, it will be extremely difficult to succeed in a sneak attack. In fighting with Sasori, even if it is only a trivial scratch, he will lose his fighting ability due to poisoning, but fighting with a strong person like Sasori, how can he not suffer a little injury? Therefore, the failure of this sneak attack means that the outcome of the battle has been decided for Hyojin. In a flash, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, attracted by Rainwheel, were grabbed by the neck by Hyojin and held in his hand, and losing the control of the magnetic release, the iron spears in the air collapsed and turned into black iron sand scattered on the ground. Looking at the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets in Hyojin's hand, Sasori's face was extremely embarrassed. At this moment, he was both surprised and suspicious, and even a little flustered and exasperated. Although his heart was already in a mess, on the surface, Hyojin still remained calm, not showing the slightest joy or anger. So, for a while, the two people, who were somewhat afraid of each other, confronted each other silently in the sandstorm. Such a confrontation made Hyojin, who was lacking in confidence, more and more nervous, and at this moment, he was surprised to find that the chakra in his body was constantly rushing to the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets in his hand. The sudden change, Hyojin still did not dare to show any expression on his face, and still stared coldly at Sasori opposite him. Feeling more and more chakra in his body pouring into the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, Hyojin's courage became more and more weak. When he thought that he finally had the Tenseigan, and he lost his life in the first battle, his heart was full of bitterness and unwillingness. Gagra, when about 2/3 of the chakra in his body poured into the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, the puppet held by Hyojin suddenly twitched disorderly. As the puppet twitched, the iron sand that had been scattered on the ground due to the loss of control also floated up. Upon seeing this, Scorpion was startled and shouted, "Damn it! You actually know puppetry? Who are you? Why did you arrange to meet the village's assassination squad here? The assassination team of the Sand Crypsis?" Hearing Scorpion's question, Hyojin's heart shuddered. The identities of the corpses that had fallen beside Scorpion were actually the assassination squad of the Sand Crypsis. This undoubtedly meant that the Sand Crypsis village had also participated in the cleansing operation on my side. At the same time, it also meant that all the higher-ups of my had tacitly agreed to this cleansing operation. Suppressing the hatred in his heart, Hyojin pulled his attention back to what was in front of him. After the initial confusion, he now understands why the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets were suddenly activated by him. According to the vague memory of his previous life, the Tenseigan, like the Rinnegan, also has a great ability, that is, to control puppets. The method for the Rinnegan to control puppets is the Black Rod. The 6 Paths of Pain are all puppets under the control of Nagato's Rinnegan, and the method for the Tenseigan to control puppets is to inject the Tenseigan chakra. Once a sufficient amount of Tenseigan chakra is injected, it can even activate the soul of the puppets, allowing them to obtain a certain degree of intelligence and autonomy. In his impression, Otsutsuki Surai easily defeated the Hyuga family head Hyuga Hayashi, who was close to the Kage level, and sneaked into the village and abducted Hyuga Hana. After understanding this, Hyojin thought about it. Without the control of the chakra line, under Hyojin's thought, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets slowly floated up, guarding in front of Hyojin, and assumed an offensive posture towards Sasori opposite. At this time, Hyojin said lightly, "I am not interested in getting rid of the traitorous ninja of the Sand Crypsis. We don't need to fight anymore." Sasori's face was gloomy. "You took away my beloved collection. Do you think I will let you go?" Even Sasori, in the face of these mysterious means that Hyojin has displayed, he also felt a faint fear. At this moment, he has listed Hyojin as a powerful opponent who can threaten his life. Hyojin smiled. This puppet retains the combat power of its previous life to the greatest extent. I have to say, in terms of making puppets, you are indeed a genius. This smile is not a pretense of Hyojin, but he is genuinely happy, because with the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, he has the ability to fly in disguise, and whether to fight or stay is all up to him. And the reason why he did not immediately leave the battlefield and continue to talk nonsense with Sasori is just to figure out how to hide his identity and avoid Sasori's revenge. After all, being targeted by a strong person like Sasori, if he is a little careless, he will inexplicably lose his life like the 3 generations of Kazekage. You can control the puppet without using the chakra line. How did you do it? After a pause, Sasori suddenly tilted his head and smiled evilly. Forget it. When I catch you, everything will be clear. After saying that, Sasori took out a red scroll. With a light shout from Sasori, the scroll was suddenly thrown, and a figure flew out of the scroll and floated around Sasori. These figures are all puppets in red cloaks. There are a total of 10 of them, each with a different shape, some with a knife, some with a sword, and some with a huge shuriken. Sasori smiled and said, "Red secret skill, 10 puppets drill." Looking at the scene in front of him, Hyojin secretly said, "It seems that Sasori has not mastered the 100 puppets drill at this time, but even the 10 puppets drill is enough for me." Gulu, gulu. In the sound of the puppet trembling, 10 red-robed puppets rushed towards Hyojin. Hyojin frowned and raised his hand again to use rain wheel manipulation. He, who has lost 2/3 of the chakra line, actually has no fighting power. So after he used rain wheel manipulation to bounce off the 10 red-robe puppets that rushed towards him, he immediately jumped to the 3 generations Kazekage puppets. In an instant, the iron sand in the sky turned into a pair of iron wings, and the 3 generations Kazekage puppets carried Hyojin and flew towards the corpse of Naruchi Mitsui in the distance. Sasori, who was bounced off with the puppets, cursed, "Damn, it's this trick again." Sasori felt a big headache for the trick of rain wheel manipulation that doesn't require hand seals. But through this test, he was also keenly aware that the effective range of rain wheel manipulation was only about 15 meters. So he immediately changed his strategy and manipulated the puppets to launch a long-range throwing attack on Hyojin. Almost without Hyojin's command, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets used magnetic release on their own, blocking all the attacking kunai and shuriken. Sasori's face sank when he saw this. He had a feeling of being slapped in the face by his own masterpiece. Soon, under the control of Sasori, the throwing weapons of the 10 red robe puppets were all replaced with bones that were quenched in highly toxic. Magnetic release can't control non-metal, so the 3 generations Kazekage puppets changed part of the iron sand into a hemispherical shape, protecting the hole behind them. Ding ding dang dang. Chapter 11. Hyojin didn't bother with Sasori, flew directly to Naruchi Mitsui's body, and immediately threw several kunai tied with detonation talismans. Boom, boom, boom. With a violent explosion, Naruchi Mitsui's body suddenly fell apart. The reason why Hyojin destroyed Naruchi Mitsui's body was to prevent Sasori from finding him based on Naruchi Mitsui's identity. After all, he didn't know how long he would have to stay at the border outpost. If Scorpion came looking for him, he wouldn't even have a place to escape. It should be known that the village was thinking of ways to purge him. If he abandoned the outpost and ran away, the village could just charge him with desertion and execute him justifiably. And after destroying Naruchi Mitsui's body, it would not be so easy for Sasori to figure out Hyojin's identity. Because no matter how strong Sasori was, he was just a traitorous ninja. Without the support of Sand Crypsis behind him, intelligence gathering would inevitably be his weakness. And this time, the cooperation between Mine and Sand Crypsis, because it involves the cleansing of their own people, there must be very few people who know, and it must be the highest level of both villages. So it is difficult for Sasori to find out the specific list of people involved in this cleansing operation from Meyer Sand Crypsis. One was flying in the sky, and the other was chasing on the ground. The distance between the two sides was naturally getting bigger and bigger. Glancing at the flustered and exasperated Sasori far behind him, Hyojin laughed heartily. At present, Sasori has not yet joined Akatsuki. Although he has an impressive record of killing Kage, he still belongs to the traditional category of Sand Crypsis puppeteer. His means are single, he relies too much on puppets, and he lacks the means to deal with all kinds of strange strong people. Therefore, after Hyojin luckily took away 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, his combat power was immediately greatly reduced. This weakening did not only refer to combat effectiveness, but more importantly, mobility. Without the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, Sasori lost the initiative on the battlefield, and it was no longer up to him to decide whether to fight or to make peace. This is also the reason why the 4 generations Naruto was able to surpass the Sannin in such a short period of time and shocked the shinobi world. Those who could defeat the 4 generations couldn't catch up, and those who couldn't defeat the 4 generations couldn't escape. The 4 generations had the final say on where and when to attack. This was the greatest helplessness in the hearts of all the enemies who encountered the 4 generations. And as the strength of Yandame-sama grew stronger day by day, slowly, no one could beat him in a one-on-one fight, and the name Golden Flash naturally spread throughout the shinobi world. The current Sasori's strength has not yet reached the peak. Maybe when he joins the Akatsuki soon, he will see the Rinnegan and understand the power above the Kaga level. Then his strength will further improve. With such thoughts in mind, Hyojin gradually got rid of Sasori, left the desert terrain, and sneaked into the forest in the territory of the land of Kawa. After repeatedly confirming that he got rid of Sasori, Hyojin deliberately took a big circle and finally stopped on a big tree 5 miles away from his post. If he goes back like this, Hyojin will inevitably be blamed for the death of Naruchi Mitsui. But he, who has taken 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, can't report the encounter with Sasori, because once he reports it to the village, under the vigorous investigation of the village, it will be difficult to keep the Kazekage puppets in his hands. Moreover, once it involves an S-class Tokunobi, the village will most likely send a Jonin or even an elite Jonin to investigate, which will greatly increase the probability of the Tenseigan being exposed. So he must put on a show to make the death of Naruchi Mitsui reasonable. After a little thought, Hyojin took action. He wrapped Sandaime Kazakage's puppet's head, hands, and other exposed parts with bandages, revealing only a pair of slightly dull eyes, and then put a gray cloak on it. Because it was originally a puppet made from a corpse, its body shape is almost exactly the same as before, plus there is no chakra line connection. So after Hyojin's camouflage, the 3 generations of Kazakage puppets look like a living ninja. After carefully looking around and confirming that there are no flaws, Hyojin handed 2 kunai to the 3 generations of Kazakage puppets and let it scratch itself with kunai. After doing all this, Hyojin shouted for help while flying toward the post. In the post, hearing Hyojin's cry for help in the distance, Red Bean, who was recuperating, was stunned and immediately jumped out of her room and landed outside the post. At the same time, the other 2 squad leaders in the post also jumped out together and looked at the direction of Hyojin's cry for help. A moment later, they saw Hyojin stumbling towards the post with blood all over his body, and behind him was a strange ninja in a cloak chasing him. Including the injured Red Bean, the 3 Mai ninjas did not hesitate and immediately went over to fight with the strange ninja who was chasing Hyojin. The 3 generations of Kazakage puppets, even if it's just physical techniques, are better than Red Bean and others. So, in order to avoid overacting, Hyojin pretended to collapse on the ground due to physical exhaustion and let the 3 generations of Kazakage puppets play a few moves with the 3 of them, and then immediately retreated. The 3 did not take the risk to pursue, but turned back to Hyojin and asked, "What happened?" Hyojin shook his head. "I don't know. Captain Mitsui and I were attacked as soon as we sneaked into the Land of Wind. The captain died on the spot. I was chased by him all the way, and it was not easy to escape back." When Red Bean heard this, her face became gloomy. The other 2 Chunin squad leaders looked at each other and found that each other's eyes were full of surprise and suspicion. Returning to Hyojin's room in the outpost, Red Bean wrapped Hyojin's wounds and said in a hoarse voice, "They are all dead." The "they" in Red Bean's mouth refers to the 9 former subordinates of Orochimaru, except for Red Bean and Hyojin. Kuroto's team was not the only one who went on a mission today. The other 2 squads in the outpost had also gone on a mission. However, only the 2 squad leaders with questionable identities had returned safely, while several of Orochimaru's old subordinates had died in an accident in battle. Hyojin did not say anything, but nodded silently. In a remote outpost with 12 people, 8 people died in less than 2 weeks. Except for Naruchi Mitsui, who was accidentally killed by Sasori. The other 7 were all former subordinates of Orochimaru. As long as one's eyes are not blind and not stupid, anyone can see that there is something fishy going on. After a moment, Hyojin pointed to the door and whispered, "Be careful of them. I suspect that they are the Roots." Red Bean has also noticed that there is something wrong with the 3 squad leaders, so she nodded and then asked in a low voice, "What happened to you today?" Chapter 12. After treating Hyojin's wounds, Red Bean understood each other's situation. She didn't say anything more and quietly returned to her room. Kuroto, on the other hand, was lying on the bed, thinking about what happened today. There was no doubt that today's mission was a trap, and the Sand Crypsis was also involved. If it wasn't for Sasori's interference, he would have to face the assassination team of the Sand Crypsis today. Perhaps, if necessary, Captain Naruchi Mitsui next to him would also be involved. As for why the Sand Crypsis was involved in Mai's cleansing operation, Hyojin pondered for a while and came up with the answer. The 4 generations of Kazakage of the Sand Crypsis was hastily promoted because of the disappearance of the 3 generations Kazakage. Without the pressure of war, the 4 generations of Kazakage was bound to weaken the influence of the 3 generations Kazakage in the Sand Crypsis. Therefore, the Sand Crypsis village actually had the need to cleanse their own people, and this need was much stronger than Mai's. Moreover, After the war, the Sand Crypsis had the intention to form an alliance with Mai. This also explained why the Sand Crypsis participated in the cleansing operation on Mai's side. The highest level of both sides had obviously reached some kind of agreement to help each other clean up the abandoned children. This could not only prevent the hands of their own people from being stained with the blood of their fellow villagers, but also give them an excuse to shirk responsibility when something went wrong. After thinking about this, Hyojin also understood that even if the Danzo was the one in charge of this cleansing operation, the 3 generations Kazekage must have tacitly agreed or knew about it. Otherwise, the Danzo alone would not have the ability to bypass the village and negotiate such a major operation with the Sand Crypsis. Hyojin was shocked and angry at the thought of so many people being heartlessly abandoned by the village. It could be said that 90% of these people were innocent. Only a small portion of them actually participated in Orochimaru's human experiments, and most of them were like Hyojin, who participated in some peripheral experimental projects. The real core projects that involved bloody human experiments were almost all done by Orochimaru himself. There were very few people who could participate in them. Even Hyojin was not qualified to get involved. It was not that Hyojin was trying to shirk his responsibility. It was just that apart from Orochimaru, few people in the village had the ability to carry out complex human experiments independently. Why did the village go so far this time? The more Hyojin thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. It was impossible for the village's higher-ups not to know that this cleansing operation would affect many innocent people, but they still did it. There must be some reason that Hyojin did not know. Then he thought about Orochimaru's voluntary defection and the abnormal behavior of the Danzo, who had always been in a cooperative relationship with Orochimaru. Kuroto suddenly felt that Orochimaru might have really done something that angered the heavens and the people. So he was investigated by the village's top management hysterically. No matter what the reason was, the cleansing had already begun. Hyojin had to restrain his scattered thoughts and calmly sort out the various threats that he would face at the moment. The threat that was close at hand was undoubtedly the cleansing of the village. Since the cleansing had already begun, the village would not end it anticlimactic. So even if Hyojin escaped this time, there would be another one waiting for him, and it would be more intense each time. In addition, the threat of Sasori could not be ignored. 3 generations Kazekage was once known as the strongest Kazekage, but the result was that they fell in the hands of Sasori. It can be seen how strong Sasori's sneak attack and assassination ability is. Now that he has become hostile with Sasori, Hyojin has to be wary of Sasori's plot. In thinking about it, the most urgent thing is how the village will react to the death of Naruchi Mitsui. Once the village suspects that Hyojin did it, then Hyojin's only way to go is to defect. I don't know if the play I played can be hidden from the village. Hyojin letting 3 generations Kazekage puppets act as wandering ninjas was actually a very good move. Because of the previous war, there were a large number of wandering ninjas who defected everywhere, so it is normal to encounter wandering ninjas occasionally on the border, where the control of each village is very weak. In addition, the other 2 squad captains in the outpost who were suspected to be roots saw 3 generations Kazekage puppets disguised as wandering ninjas with their own eyes, and they even fought with them, which made Hyojin's words more convincing. After thinking about it all night, Hyojin found a gap the next day and recovered the 3 generations Kazekage puppets hidden near the outpost and sealed them in a portable scroll. At the moment, the outpost is seriously reduced. Among the only 4 ninjas left, there are 2 injured people, Red Bean and Hyojin, so the village will send a support team at any time, and the support team may even be on the way. And the support team will inevitably have a scouting-type ninja. If 3 generations Kazekage puppets continue to wander near the outpost, it is likely that they will bump into the support team and be exposed. In the final analysis, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets are too eye-catching. Not to mention Hyojin, even the bold Sasori does not dare to use them on a daily basis. And once they are exposed in the hands of Hyojin, not to mention losing a trump card, it is difficult to explain. Although 3 generations Kazekage are dead, they were once the Kazekage of the village, representing the face of the Sand Crypsis village. Even if it is only to maintain the authority of one of the 5 great shinobi villages, the Sand Crypsis village will find the 3 generations Kazekage puppets at any cost and kill the owners of the 3 generations Kazekage puppets. Hyojin, who has been listed as the target of cleansing by the village, does not want to provoke the Sand Crypsis village anymore. Anyway, at present, only Hyojin and Sasori know that 3 generations Kazekage puppets were made into human puppets, and Sasori, as the culprit who killed 3 generations Kazekage puppets and made them into human puppets, will certainly not take the initiative to publicize this matter. Moreover, in terms of Sasori's temperament, it is estimated that he is still thinking about how to take back the 3 generations Kazekage puppets from Hyojin. So as long as Hyojin does not make a mistake, the matter of 3 generations Kazekage puppets will not be exposed for a while. In the next few days, everything was calm. Taking advantage of this little breathing time left, Hyojin closed his door to study the ability of the Tenseigan to control puppets. After many attempts, he found that the flexibility of the puppet depends entirely on the amount of Tenseigan chakra he infuses. In short, the more chakras amount he infuses, the higher the flexibility of the puppet. Hyojin doesn't know much about puppets. He doesn't know if the 3 generations Kazekage puppets belong to the relatively high-end puppets. In short, just simply activating it requires at least half of Hyojin's chakra to maintain it. If he wants to go further, if he wants the 3 generations Kazekage puppets to have the ability to use magnet release, he needs to consume at least 2/3 of Hyojin's chakra to maintain it. In other words, in the state of activating the 3 generations Kazekage puppets, Hyojin can only retain at most half of chakra's amount, barely reaching the level of an elite Chunin's chakra. Hyojin has also tried to infuse his whole body's chakra into the 3 generations Kazekage puppets to see if this puppet can go further and have a small amount of autonomous consciousness. But the result was disappointing. He doesn't know if his total amount of chakra is too little or for other reasons. Anyway, even if he infuses all of his chakra, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets have not changed further. At best, they're more flexible than when he infuses 2/3 of his chakra. Chapter 13. In the blink of an eye, 3 weeks passed. Hyojin was quite surprised. After such a long time, the village didn't send a support team, nor did they purge him and Red Bean again. This is obviously not in line with his expectations, and it doesn't make sense. What kind of cleansing was this? What kind of procrastination? Could it be that something happened in the village? Searching through the vague memory in his mind, Hyojin tried to find clues from it and figure out what happened. But after recalling for a long time, he didn't find anything. Suddenly, a picture flashed in his mind, and his whole body was shocked, and he murmured, Nine-Tails Rebellion. Although he doesn't know the specific time when the Nine-Tails Rebellion occurred, Hyojin knows that it happened on the night when Naruto was born. Naruto's mother, Kushina, is the Jinchuriki of Nine-Tails. All information related to her is confidential, and with Hyojin's status in the village, it is impossible to inquire about it. But this doesn't affect his speculation, because Hinata and Naruto are about the same age, and before he left the village, he had already received the news that the patriarch's wife was pregnant. If Naruto is a few months older than Hinata, then Naruto's birthday should be in the near future. How could I forget about this? In the bottom of his heart, Hyojin secretly blamed himself. In fact, this is inevitable. After all, he has been in the shinobi world for more than 10 years, and his memory is a bit vague. Plus, he has always been under the threat of death. He has neither the ability to intervene in various major events, nor the will to intervene in various major events. So he doesn't care much about the major events in the shinobi world. Now it's different with the Tenseigan. He has the ability to intervene in some things. So he must pay attention to every major event in the shinobi world like a real strong person in order to benefit from it. After reviewing himself, Hyojin analyzed the current situation in the village. If the nine-tailed chaos really happened, it meant that the structure of the village would undergo earth-shaking changes. The Yondaime Hokage and the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki died at the same time. Not only did Konoha lose the two most potential Kaga-level combatants, but it also caused Konoha to fall into an awkward situation. White Teeth committed suicide, Tsunade ran away, Orochimaru defected, and Jiraiya left the village to pursue. Today, among the younger and middle-aged generations of Mai, except for Jiraiya who is not in the village, there are no other real Kaga-class combatants. There are only 3 generations and Danzo who have been in power for more than 20 years in the village. In addition, during the Nine-Tails Rebellion, the Nine-Tails Rebellion was suspected to be controlled by the Sharingan, causing the Uchiha clan, as an important fighting force in the village, to be suspected by the village, and all the strong Uchiha clan members were put on the watch list. Without the memory of his previous life, Hyojin can foresee that the infighting between the Uchiha clan and the village will be inevitable. After analyzing the changes in the village, Hyojin pondered his own situation. There is no doubt that compared to the powerful Uchiha clan that is suspected to have caused the Nine-Tails Rebellion, in the eyes of the village, the former subordinates of Orochimaru, like Hyojin, are not much of a threat. What's more, a large number of ordinary ninjas were killed in the Nine-Tails Rebellion, and the village, which has lost a large number of people, not only must immediately rebuild the destroyed area, but also must transfer elite people to monitor the Uchiha clan. Even if Mai is strong, the manpower at this time is probably stretched, so it is reasonable that he can't take care of the border post. It didn't take long for Hyojin's guess to be confirmed. The village sent a message, abandon the post, and all personnel immediately returned to the village. After a simple cleaning up, the 4 people on the post embarked on the journey back to the village. On the way, Hyojin secretly rejoiced, feeling that his luck was good. Sasori did not find him for such a long time. In fact, this matter is Hyojin's own thinking. The seizure of 3 generations of Kazekage's puppets was actually an accident, which Hyojin knows, but Sasori is not. In Sasori's view, Hyojin's rain wheel and chakra line to control the puppets are too strange, leading him to misjudge Hyojin's strength, mistakenly thinking that Hyojin is at least an elite Jonin, so he directly ignored the border post. Because according to common sense, the border post, which is mainly used for early warning, will not deploy elite Jonin. As a result, the border post, where Hyojin is located, has become the safest place, which is why Sasori has not been able to find Hyojin. After a week of rushing all the way, the 4 finally returned to the village. At this time, the village is simply a big construction site. Everywhere you look, there are busy craftsmen, scaffolding everywhere, and transport vehicles coming and going. Pointing to the damaged city wall in the distance, Red Bean was a little confused. What's going on? The 2 suspected root ninjas seemed to know some news, but looking at the scene in front of them, they showed a surprised expression at the same time. Obviously, the damage to the village is far beyond their previous expectations. Hyojin was also surprised at this moment. Although he has long known that the Nine-Tails Rebellion has brought deep bone marrow damage to Mai, the dilapidated scene of the village still made it difficult for him to adapt for a while. It must be known that even in the cruel war, the village has not suffered such serious losses. After arriving at the mission center, after a simple task handover, the 4 people dispersed. Hyojin, who was free for the first time in several months, did not idle, but inquired about the changes in the village. It didn't take long for him to collect a lot of information. First of all, the exact time when the Nine-Tails Rebellion happened was about a month ago. Calculating the time, it happened to be a few days before and after Hyojin encountered Sasori at the border. Secondly, in just one night of turmoil, the village lost more than 20 Jonin and hundreds of Chunin and Genin. Almost all the ninja families in the village had casualties. It is said that the funeral alone lasted for a whole week. Finally, several blocks that were ravaged by the Nine were completely razed to the ground, and the civilian casualties were difficult to estimate. Even now, many civilian bodies have not been found. After collecting enough information, Hyojin returned home with a heavy heart. Obsidian is not a stranger to Hyojin, because among the classmates in the same period, there are only a few who could be barely suppressed by Hyojin, and Obsidian is one of them. And it is such a seemingly lacking in the brain that has now grown into a behind-the-scenes boss that can kill 4 generations Naruto and 9 tails Jinchuriki, and play with the entire shinobi world in the palm of his hand. To be honest, Hyojin is really a little upset. But even though he is upset, he also understands in his heart that Obsidian, who now has the Manjikyu Sharingan and Hashirama cells, is no longer the same as before, and he can no longer be looked at with the old eyes in school. At the same time, Hyojin's heart also rose with ambition. Chapter 14. When the thing called ambition burned in his heart, Hyojin's thoughts became more and more agile. White Fang, the Kage-level powerhouses of the Sannin generation, either died, fled, or left. Now only Jiraiya is left, who is absent-minded and has no intention of taking the position of Naruto. Among the Kage-level powerhouses of Yondaime and Kushina's generation, except for the Yondaime Naruto and the Nine Tails Jinchuriki couple, others such as Hyuga Hayashi, Uchiha Fuwa, Ino Shikacho, and other patriarchs of the major clans, although their strength is not bad, but they're still a little bit away from the real Kage level. Mai's lack of talent has undoubtedly been revealed. This is a huge crisis for Mai, but for Hyojin, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Because for him, the only real competitors are Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Jishui, Itachi, and other new generation ninjas of the same generation. And Jishui and Itachi, the 2 strongest of the new generation of Uchiha clan, because of the tense relationship between the Uchiha clan and the village. The stronger they are, the more they will be feared by the village. So in fact, they're also excluded from the competition. In the future, this will be my stage. Hyojin is very sure in his heart. This is not only his confidence in himself, but also his expectations for the future. As for how to seize power, Hyojin is facing 2 troubles at the moment. One is his Tenseigan. Although the Hyuga people will not casually open Byakugan in the village, if anyone happens to open Byakugan in front of him, then his Tenseigan will immediately be exposed. After all, there is a clear difference between the Tenseigan that contains the stars in the sky and the pure white Byakugan. The second is his identity as a former subordinate of Orochimaru. For the first trouble, Hyojin didn't come up with any good countermeasures, so he can only temporarily avoid the Hyuga clansmen. As for the second problem, considering the current shortage of manpower in the village and the Uchiha clan attracting the attention of the village's higher-ups, Hyojin felt that as long as he operated properly, it might not be difficult to solve this problem. Immediately, Kuroto's face became gloomy. Chunin, in a Chunin promoted during the war, my status is too low. Anyone can step on me. In the past few months, Hyojin had suffered enough. The helplessness of being ordered around, the resentment of being targeted for cleansing, and the sorrow of not being in control of his own fate, all these experiences made him understand the simplest truth. If he didn't want to be stepped on, he could only climb as high as possible. I need a new persona in the village, one that's different from the mediocre one I used to be. As soon as he thought about how to improve his status, Hyojin subconsciously thought of 4 generations Naruto. Yes, 4 generations shinobi is a typical representative of the counterattack of the civilian ninja of this era. If one has to summarize the characteristics of 4 generations Naruto, then Hyojin's brain will immediately think of the words strong, sunshine, and high profile. The more cruel the war, the more dazzling the stage. It can be said that the Third Shinobi World War created 4 generations shinobi, allowing him to obtain the position of Naruto, representing the supreme power of the shinobi world as a young civilian ninja. Now that the war is over, if Hyojin wants to gain a huge reputation, he must be more high profile than 4 generations shinobi. He must show his unparalleled strength in front of everyone, so that everyone understands his strength, so that when people consider Naruto's successor, his figure will subconsciously flash in their mind. Of course, the change of persona needs to be done step by step and cannot be rushed. Otherwise, it will inevitably arouse the suspicion of the village's top management. After making up his mind, Hyojin no longer delayed and immediately took action. In peacetime, if you want to show your talent, the fastest way is to do missions, and a good mission resume is also an important basis for promotion. Thinking about it, Hyojin immediately came to the mission center. Compared with the usual days, today's mission center is slightly deserted. Coming to the counter, Hyojin said to the staff, "I'm Chunin Hyojin. Please show me which B-level missions can be received." After verifying Hyojin's identity, the staff handed him a mission list. "These are all B-level missions. You'd better pick the first few pages. Those employers are waiting anxiously." Hyojin also knows that there is a serious shortage of manpower in the village at the moment, and many missions are backlogged, so he didn't say much and immediately checked the mission list. The village's classification of missions is very strict. Jonin can accept all missions including S-level. Chunin can only accept B-level to D-level missions, and Jinin can only accept C-level to D-level missions. Among them, S-level missions are generally commissioned by a certain force, mainly to assassinate important personnel, steal confidential information, etc. A-level missions are mostly commissioned by a certain force, mainly to protect important personnel, crusade against traitorous ninjas, etc. B-level to D-level missions are generally commissioned by individuals, of which B-level and C-level missions will encounter battles, and D-level missions will not have battles. Hyojin is a Chunin, and he has the strength of a Jonin without using the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations, so choosing B-level missions is the most appropriate choice. After a brief look at the mission list, Hyojin frowned. The missions on the mission list are not difficult, but most of the missions have requirements for the number of people, the least of which requires at least a team of 2 ninjas to receive. At this time, a short figure appeared in front of the work window next to Hyojin. Hyojin glanced at him with the corner of his eyes and was immediately stunned. This little guy is none other than the genius of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha. Although he is only 6 or 7 years old, Itachi has shown maturity far beyond his age. The little guy is like an adult, looking at the mission list in a systematic way. After a while, Itachi handed the mission list back to the staff and asked childishly, "Excuse me, is there no C-level mission that can be received by a single person?" The staff at Itachi's window seems to have long been accustomed to dealing with the Uchiha clan. He was not surprised that a 6 or 7-year-old child wanted to receive a C-level mission alone. He just shook his head normally. "No, if you want to receive a C-level mission, you should find a familiar ninja to form a team." Itachi was a little distressed when he heard the words and whispered, "It seems that I can only wait for Brother Jishue to return to the village." Hyojin on the side smiled and said, "Kid, you haven't graduated yet, right?" Itachi replied politely. Because of the reconstruction, the school had a 4-month holiday. Hyojin did not expect that the ninja school was also destroyed in the Nine-Tails Rebellion and said, "Since it's a holiday, stay at home. It's dangerous for you to go on a mission alone." Itachi said with a serious face, "Now the village is understaffed, and many missions have been backlogged. If no one does it for a long time, it will be a great blow to the prestige of the village. In the future, the missions that the village can accept will gradually decrease." Hyojin was stunned and didn't know what to say for a while. After looking at Hyojin, Itachi asked, "Excuse me, ancestor, are you a Chunin?" Hyojin nodded. Itachi looked happy. "Are you short of manpower, senior?" "My name is Itachi Uchiha. Although I haven't graduated yet, I am already a qualified genin." Hyojin shook his head and said, "I want to receive a B-level mission. You are not suitable." At this time, the village was suspicious of the Uchiha clan. Hyojin had not completely gotten rid of his own troubles, so he didn't want to have anything to do with the Uchiha clan. Itachi quickly said, "I have checked the B-level mission, and there is no single person who can receive it, so senior, you must also need a team member." Hyojin pondered for a while and felt that it would be inevitable to deal with the strong people of the Uchiha clan in the future, so it was necessary to understand the fighting style of the Uchiha clan in advance. And Itachi was one of the most dazzling people in this generation of Uchiha. Establishing a personal relationship with him early may play some unexpected roles. With a smile, Hyojin, who had an idea, said, "Okay, but you have to listen to my instructions and can't act on your own." Chapter 15. After discussing the matter of forming a team, Hyojin looked at the task list again, and Itachi stood aside, quietly waiting for Hyojin to choose the task. When turning to the second page of the task list, a name suddenly attracted Hyojin's attention. Shino? Who is so arrogant and dares to call this name? In the bottom of his heart, Hyojin immediately looked at the task seriously. The task is very simple. That is, to escort a doctor named Shino to the land of Tion, which is adjacent to the land of fire. Staring at the mission introduction, Hyojin frowned slightly. For some reason, he always had a sense of déjà vu. After a while, he finally remembered. In Kuroto's vague memory, there was indeed a remnant of the Konoha clan disguised as a doctor, traveling around the countries, grinding his reputation while waiting for opportunities to steal the secret forbidden techniques of various shinobi villages. And this guy seemed to be called Shino. Later, he seemed to have created an artificial tailed beast called Zero Tail, which made a lot of noise. Could it be him? After thinking about it, Hyojin decided that whether it was him or not, he had to take this task. After completing the formalities to receive the task, Hyojin and Itachi soon met the client. After carefully looking at the man named Shino in front of him, Hyojin had an answer in his heart. The person in front of him, whether it was his appearance or dress, was generally consistent with the Shino in his memory of his previous life. There is no doubt that this guy is the remnant of the Konoha, the creator of the future Zero Tail. Knowing the identity of the other party, Hyojin introduced himself calmly. "My name is Hyojin. I am a Michunin, and I am also the captain of the team that accepted the task you entrusted. The one next to me is my team member, named Itachi Uchiha, a Migenin." Shino, who was just in his early 30s, was very polite and bowed. "Then this time I will leave it to you two. We will try our best, but before we leave, I want to know something about the situation." After a pause, Hyojin asked, "You should have your own reasons for raising the mission to be rank, right? Tell me, who is your enemy?" Shino was a little uneasy. He coughed twice and said, "Actually, we're not enemies. It's just a little misunderstanding. When I was traveling in the Hidden Cloud village, there seemed to be a theft in their village, so they suspected that I was related to the theft. But I'm just an ordinary doctor. How could I be related to this kind of thing? Only a fool would believe you." Laughing inwardly, Hyojin thought to himself, "This guy seems to be very good at stealing. In a ghost place like the Hidden Cloud village, even a high-level spy of mine would find it difficult to infiltrate it. It is even more difficult to steal information, ninjutsu, forbidden techniques, etc. And this ugly Shino can steal things from the Hidden Cloud village. What's even more amazing is that he can still escape unscathed, which is surprising. Considering that this guy may be useful in the future, Hyojin did not expose him. After a little preparation, the three of them embarked on the journey to the country of Tion. As soon as he left the village, Hyojin saw Itachi's seriousness. Whether it's the choice of route or the choice of camping site, they're all decent and impeccable. On the way, Itachi will even correct the errors and omissions on the map he carries with him from time to time. When camping, he will record the day's journey and occasionally write down some experiences. It can be said that the existence of Itachi has saved Hyojin a lot of trouble. Hyojin was naturally not idle. He used the unparalleled insight of the Tenseigan to observe Itachi and Shino all the time. Through the changes in their facial expressions and the contraction and contraction of their body muscles, he exercised his insight and prediction ability. The sensitive Itachi quickly noticed this, but he thought that Hyojin was just examining whether he was a qualified genin, so there was no resistance. Shino undoubtedly also noticed it, but he tried his best to cover it up, showing an ignorant appearance, laughing all day and talking about the interesting things when he traveled around. After a few weeks of walking and stopping, the group finally arrived at the border between the land of fire and the land of Tion. Seeing that it was getting late, Hyojin ordered, "Itachi, find a suitable camp, have a good rest tonight, and cross the border tomorrow." "Yes." Itachi responded in a well-behaved manner, then jumped to the tree and looked for a suitable camp. Shino on the side smiled and said, Kuroto Kun and Itachi are worthy of being the descendants of famous families. Waving his hand, Hyojin said indifferently, It doesn't matter what your surname is. After all, the ninja world relies on strength to speak. Shino still smiled and said, When traveling around, I have seen a lot of ninjas, but there are not many who are as good as you. I think it won't be long before your names will be spread in the ninja world. Knowing what kind of person Shino is, Hyojin didn't care about his flattery and changed the topic to medical skills. It is undeniable that this Shino is very accomplished in medical skills, especially in the fields of bandaging skills, human meridians, herbal pharmacology, etc., which surpasses ordinary doctors by a large margin. This is also one of the reasons why he can disguise himself as a doctor and travel around countries. Otherwise, he would have been caught as a spy long ago. After finding a camp with a wide view, the three of them ate dry food while discussing the human meridians. Of course, it is mainly Shino who is explaining, and Hyojin and Itachi are learning. The human meridians are not mysterious to Hyojin, who was born in the Hyuga clan. It's just that the knowledge of meridians in the Hyuga clan is for the service of Soft Fist, and the knowledge of meridians explained by Shino is for the service of medical skills. Different fields, different ideas, different viewpoints. Under the collision, Hyojin has a deeper understanding of the human meridians. Itachi also listened very seriously, and after a while, he wrote and drew several pages in the small notebook he carried with him. The human meridians are not unfamiliar to the Uchiha clan who have Sharingan, but there is no medical inheritance related to the human meridians in the Uchiha clan, so Shino's knowledge is particularly precious. Shino spoke very wholeheartedly, but he naturally did so for a purpose. In his eyes, Hyojin and Itachi, the two rich children of Mai, are very valuable to make friends with. Once a personal relationship is established, he will have two more helpers in his activities in Mai in the future. Chatting, Hyojin suddenly asked, By the way, what is lost in the Cloud Village? Why are you so persistent in finding trouble with a doctor? I don't know this. I have nothing to do with this matter. With an awkward smile, Shino explained again. This time, if it weren't for a plague in a village in the country of Tion, an old friend of mine in the village sent a message and begged me to go there. I really don't want to run around at this time. Knowing that he couldn't get any useful information from Shino's mouth, Hyojin said, Well, that's all for today. Let's rest. We still have to hurry tomorrow. Hearing this, Itachi quickly used wire and bells to lay several early warning tripwires around the camp, and then he jumped up and found a tree branch with a good view to rest. Chapter 16. After observing the early warning traps set by Itachi, Hyojin randomly picked a clean grassland, leaned his back against the tree trunk, and pretended to sleep. Because of Shino, the employer, he was walking all the way. For a ninja like Hyojin, there was no burden at all, so even if he walked for a whole day, he was not tired. In the pretense of sleep, Hyojin thought about his own things. At present, apart from the lack of the inheritance of the Tenseigan, the biggest problem that restricts his strength improvement is the chakra's amount. As the Tenseigan enters the stable period, the increase in his chakra's amount also tends to stabilize. Although it is growing every day, the effect is far less significant than during the adaptation period. In terms of chakra's amount alone, although he is already the best among his peers, this does not satisfy him. He knows that he can't be as dazzling as Naruto of 4 generations. To solve this problem, in fact, is not impossible. Tailed beasts are a good supply of chakra. Almost all Jinchuriki have an inexhaustible supply of chakra. The difference is only whether the Jinchuriki can control the tailed beasts in their bodies. However, the 9 tailed beasts are in the hands of the 5 major ninja villages, and they're also the goal of Akatsuki in the future, so capturing these tailed beasts is no less than snatching food from the mouth of tiger. But Zero Tail is different. This is an artificial tailed beast. Although it is far inferior to the orthodox nine-tailed beasts in terms of strength and stability, if it is only used as a battery, it may really solve the current problem of Hyojin. Thinking of this, Hyojin inadvertently glanced at Shino, who was resting not far away, and said in his heart, "When Zero Tail appears, Naruto is already very old. If I have to wait for more than 10 years, the daylilies will be cold." Early the next morning, the three of them packed up and went on the road again, and when they entered the territory of the land of Tian, they were soon targeted by a group of wandering ninjas. The wandering ninjas are often the traitorous ninjas of the big ninja villages and the ninjas of the small ninja villages that have collapsed. The strength of these ninjas is generally not strong, so most of them are entrenched in small countries without the protection of ninja villages such as the country of Tian, robbing and committing crimes. Looking at the wandering ninjas hanging far behind him, Itachi asked, "Captain, what should we do?" Hyojin looked around and said lightly, "There are 3 ambushers in front and 3 behind. I'll take care of the one in front, and you take care of the one behind. Let's end this quickly." Swish! Swish with Suijin's order. He and Itachi turned into 2 afterimages and rushed towards the wandering ninjas who were staring at them one after the other. On Hyojin's side, he didn't use rain pull. He just relied on the amazing insight of the Tenseigan to deal with the 3 wandering ninjas in front of him. When Hyojin turned around to check, the battle on Itachi's side had also ended. Using the exquisite kunai throw, coupled with the taijutsu that doesn't have the slightest excess movement, Itachi's fighting style is also straightforward and neat, not at all inferior to Suijin. The whole battle seemed to be just an inconspicuous episode, and the 3 of them didn't care too much and continued on their way. After walking for another half a day, Hyojin suddenly stopped. Itachi and Shino both looked puzzled, but seeing Hyojin looking in the distance with a very solemn expression, they didn't ask, but consciously became alert. After a few seconds, Hyojin said in a deep voice, "I'm afraid we are in trouble." Itachi asked, "Is it Cloud Village?" Hyojin nodded. The 4 people who are rapidly approaching all have a good amount of chakras amount. Especially the leader, the amount of chakras amount is more than anyone Hyojin has ever seen before, including the 3 generations Naruto. Moreover, these 4 people didn't hide their whereabouts at all, and just pounced on Suijin and the others with a posture as if they were sure to eat Suijin and the others. Kuroto is not stupid. At this time, he has realized that what Shino stole from the Cloud Village should be something very important. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't have mobilized so many people and sent such an elite team to pursue it. After another 10 seconds, the 4 figures landed on the surrounding trees and looked at Hyojin and others condescendingly. While the other party was looking at Hyojin, Hyojin was also looking at them. There were a total of 4 people, and the leader was a female ninja who was about the same age as Hyojin. According to the memory of his previous life, Hyojin still had some impression of this female ninja, but he couldn't remember her name, but she seemed to be second last Jinchuriki. In addition to second last Jinchuriki, the other 3 people also seemed to be at the level of Jonin, and they should be the guards specially arranged by the Cloud Village for second last Jinchuriki. After a brief confrontation, second last Jinchuriki said coldly, "Hey, my brats, hurry up and get lost. Go back and tell your village that you encountered the Cloud Village's Yujito Ni, and your village will not blame you for giving up the mission." Obviously, they were the same age, but he was called a brat. Hyojin's mood can be imagined. This Jinchuriki is very conceited about his own strength, and he didn't put Hyojin and Itachi in his eyes at all. In Hyojin's vague impression, this guy seemed to be too conceited and insisted on fighting Akatsuki's undead duo, and as a result, not only did he lose his tailed beast, but he also lost his life. At this moment, Shino's face was gloomy and uncertain. In his eyes, Suijin and Itachi are indeed very good ninjas, but compared with Kyumo's Jinchuriki Yujito, they are obviously not as good as Kyumo's Jinchuriki Yujito. Itachi is a clear-minded person, and when he saw the lineup sent by the Cloud Village, he guessed that Shino, as the employer, must be hiding something. Seeing that the silent Hyojin and Itachi seemed unmoved, Yujito Ni said again, "This guy named Shino stole the important secrets of our cloud village. He is a complete liar. Is it worth it to lose your life for such a liar?" Shino immediately argued, "I haven't entered your village at all. How could I steal your secrets? It is disgraceful for you to treat a doctor like this." Yujito Ni sneered, "Don't quibble, whether it is you or not. We will naturally know after the interrogation." Kuroda was a little hesitant at this moment. He did the task to increase his reputation. If he betrayed his employer by not fighting, he would not be able to increase his reputation. He might even be punished by the village. And the Jinchuriki of the Ni is not an ordinary opponent. Once they fight, the degree of the battle will be difficult to control. Boom! Just as Hyojin was weighing the pros and cons, there was a sudden explosion in the distance. For a time, the eyes of both sides were cast in that direction. Hyojin stared and found that there were two people fighting in the direction of the explosion, and he knew both of them. They were Orochimaru and Jiraiya of Mai Sannin. Chapter 17. Only the Tenseigan has such insight, and others, including Itachi, who had not yet opened his eyes, did not notice the flash of surprise on Shino's face. And Hyojin, who was aware of this, pondered in his heart. Seeing Orochimaru and Jiraiya, why is Shino happy? Orochimaru's defection to Mai is known to the world. He and Jiraiya appear at the same time, 1 plus and 1 minus. It is reasonable to say that there is no real help to our current situation, unless Shino can be sure that Orochimaru and Jiraiya will join forces to help us deal with the Cloud Ninjas. Then how could he be sure that Orochimaru will help as a renegade ninja? Knowing that Cloud Village is hunting him at this time, why does he insist on coming to the land of Tion? He hired my ninja to escort him with great fanfare. Is he trying to provoke a dispute between Mai and Cloud? Then how can he be sure that he can escape unscathed? Could it be? Is it not a coincidence to meet Orochimaru here? His trump card is Orochimaru, who is hiding in the land of Tion. He is Orochimaru's man. No, he is an empty ninja, and it is impossible for him to be a subordinate of Orochimaru. There should be some kind of cooperation between him and Orochimaru. The observed information, combined with vague memories, Hyojin soon had the answer. But in any case, the unexpected appearance of Orochimaru and Jiraiya is a turning point for Hyojin. If Orochimaru really cooperates with Shino, then he will not ignore Shino, and Jiraiya will not let my ninja be killed by the Cloud Ninja in front of him. As soon as the thought turned, Hyojin immediately put his hand behind his back and made a gesture to Itachi. When Itachi saw this, he quickly took out my signal flare and threw it high into the sky. Bang, 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 with a burst of sound, the signal flare exploded into 3 red smoke clouds in the air. In fact, there was no need for Itachi's signal flare. As soon as Orochimaru and Jiraiya discovered Orochimaru and Jiraiya, they also discovered Orochimaru and Jiraiya, and both of them stopped fighting and rushed over together. Soon, Orochimaru and Jiraiya appeared in front of Hyojin and others. Looking at the crowd in front, Orochimaru smiled with a hoarse voice and said, "I didn't expect to meet the Cloud Ninja's Jinchuriki here. It seems that I got something today." Jiraiya hurriedly said, "Orochimaru, don't mess around. It will cause a war." Orochimaru ignored Jiraiya and moved his gaze away from the Cloud Ninja and glanced at Hyojin and others. His eyes stopped on Hyojin and Itachi and finally fell on Shino, showing a playful smile. On the Cloud side, with the successive appearance of Orochimaru and Jiraiya, Yujito Ni has lost her previous calmness, and the 3 Cloud Ninjas who accompanied her are even more nervous. Orochimaru looked at Hyojin with great interest and said after a long time, "Kuroto-kun, the feeling you give me this time seems to be different from before." Kuroto replied calmly, "Thanks to you, I almost died in the hands of the Kanagakur, so it will be somewhat different." Orochimaru smiled and said, "Is it a blessing in disguise? Then you have to thank Danzo. Are you saying that this purge was caused by Shimura Danzo? Well, I overestimated his ability and underestimated his means. Orochimaru looked casual, as if he was talking about something completely unrelated to him. Hyojin tentatively said, "It seems that you must have robbed some treasure from him." Orochimaru did not deny it, but smiled and said, "Yes, it is indeed a very good treasure." After confirming his guess, Hyojin did not continue to probe, but took the initiative to change the topic and asked softly, "That Shino is one of your people, right?" Orochimaru looked at Hyojin. "Even this can't be hidden from you. You really are different from before." Hyojin shook his head modestly. He revealed too many flaws, not to mention me. Even the little guy of Uchiha noticed something. With a non-committal smile, Orochimaru said, "He stole some secret techniques related to physical regeneration from the Cloud Village, which are very helpful for my current experiments." So that's how it is. No wonder Cloud Village sent such a strong pursuit team. Chapter 18. Even a strong person like Orochimaru is interested in this secret technique. If Hyojin says that he is not interested, then he will undoubtedly be deceiving himself. So he said bluntly, "What do you need me to do for you?" Orochimaru said, "What do you think of Itachi Uchiha?" Hyojin replied without hesitation, "Unlike many so-called geniuses, he is a real genius. Maybe in 3 to 5 years, he can grow to the point where no one can catch up with him." Taking out a scroll from his arms and throwing it to Hyojin, Orochimaru said, "Help me pay more attention to him. I am very interested in this Uchiha." After saying that, Orochimaru's figure disappeared into the shadows, as if he had never appeared. Holding the secret technique scroll that Orochimaru threw over, Hyojin thought in his heart, "Is it Itachi's Sharingan or Itachi's body that Orochimaru covets?" There is no doubt about Itachi's excellence. Even Hokage-sama has praised him in public. It's just that Kuroto isn't sure what Orochimaru meant by pay more attention. Returning to the camp, Hyojin found that Itachi was writing and drawing in a small notebook that he carried with him. So he asked casually, "What are you writing?" Itachi replied seriously, "I am recording the mission log. According to the rules of the village, the ninjas who perform the mission must record the mission log. When returning to the village to hand over the mission log will be kept as a file and sealed in the archives of the mission center. But rules are rules. In fact, there are very few ninjas who are willing to record the mission log in detail. Most ninjas, like Hyojin, simply narrate the process of the mission when handing over the mission, and then the staff of the mission center will record it on the spot and finally store it in the archives." Hyojin said with emotion, "Itachi, you're the most meticulous and serious ninja I have ever seen so far. Although you are young, you are meticulous in everything you do." Closing the notebook, Itachi replied, "I just want to learn more from Senior." Hyojin shook his head and smiled, not saying anything more. After that, the return journey was very smooth. Unlike the dawdling journey, Hyojin and Itachi, who traveled at full speed like a ninja, only took a week to return to the village. After submitting the mission log to the mission center immediately raised the difficulty level of the mission from B to A. As for the reason, it is because this mission involves the Cloud Village, which is also one of the 5 great shinobi villages along with the My Village, and the other party also dispatched the Jinchuriki Yujito and his team of guards. Jinchuriki can often be regarded as the strongest combat power in a shinobi village apart from the Kage, and they are the pillar of a shinobi village. Therefore, if a shinobi encounters such a troublesome character in a mission and can successfully complete the mission, according to the usual practice, the mission center will increase the mission evaluation by 1 level. Of course, the bounty issued to Hyojin and Itachi is still the standard of a B-level mission, but the two of them have an additional A-level mission completion record on their resumes. Completing an A-level mission is very rare for Chunin, not to mention Itachi, who has not yet graduated, so Itachi was very happy when he walked out of the mission center. Looking at Itachi's smiling face, Hyojin sighed with emotion. Only now do I really look like a child. At this time, Itachi bowed deeply to Hyojin and said sincerely, "Kuroto-san, Thank you for your guidance. I learned a lot in this mission. You are a real mind ninja. Hyojin smiled and said, I don't remember what I taught you. Itachi replied, You are indeed not a talkative person, but you taught me a lot with your actions, especially when I encountered the Jinchuriki of Nibi. You let me understand the persistence that a mind ninja should have. Hyojin was startled when he heard this, and immediately asked, Don't you think I was embarrassed at that time? Itachi shook his head. Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth. Then do you know why I can remain calm in the face of the humiliation of Kyumo, shinobi? Itachi thought about it very seriously for a while, and tentatively replied, Because anger will interfere with judgment, so ninjas should not be angry? No. Waving his hand, Hyojin smiled mysteriously. It's because when I think about Itachi Uchiha who suffered with me, my mood suddenly becomes much better. Itachi only thought that Hyojin was joking with him, so he chatted for a while and then left. Looking at Itachi's leaving figure, Hyojin sighed softly. It has to be said that the Uchiha clan is indeed a different species. They are too easy to go to extremes. They are as narrow-minded as Obsidian, who wants to destroy the world for a secret love. Itachi, who loves universal love, is willing to kill his parents and relatives with his own hands in order to avoid suffering. If it's just extreme thinking, it's fine. There are many such people in the world. But the Uchiha clan is different. The more extreme they are, the stronger their pupil power. And once they evolve into Manjikyu Sharingan, these people will have both the motivation and the strength to put their extreme ideas into practice and realize them. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. Naruto's office. 3 generations Naruto's Sarutobi was smoking a pipe and looking at the documents in his hand. Suddenly, 3 generations asked Naruto's assistant next to him, Did the Uchiha clan's kid just completed an A-level mission? Because the village has launched a comprehensive monitoring of the Uchiha clan, Itachi had just completed the mission and the documents were sent to Naruto's office. The assistant replied, Yes, it was originally a B-level mission, but the mission involved the Cloud Village, and the other party also dispatched the Nibi's Jinchuriki, so the mission center raised the mission evaluation from B-level to A-level. 3 generations looked through the mission record and said, Is this Hyojin related to Orochimaru? The assistant replied, Yes, during the war, Orochimaru arranged for him from the front line to the field hospital through his own connections, and he served as a hospital guard for a period of time. He doesn't know how to use medical ninjutsu, but he is proficient in wound dressing, and he has a good reputation in the medical class. Except for his close relationship with Orochimaru, there is no other stain on his record. 3 generations took out Hyojin's personal file again, glanced at it, and then frowned. Has he been cleansed? The assistant replied, Yes, the root has carried out a cleansing on him, but due to the encounter with an unidentified wandering ninja, the cleansing operation failed, and the accompanying root ninja, Naruchi Mitsui, died. The frown on Sandame's face deepened. An unidentified wandering ninja? Can you confirm it? The assistant replied, There is also news from the Sand Crypsis that their assassination team responsible for the cleansing operation was also completely destroyed, but the information they send is a bit vague. It seems that they know who the murderer is, but they don't want to tell us, so the intelligence team analyzed that the so-called wandering ninja is probably a traitorous ninja of the Sand Crypsis. The frown on Sandame-sama's face relaxed. Since we can confirm that it wasn't Kuroto who did it, then let's observe him for a while, and if there are no abnormalities, we can cross him off the purge list. With the defection of Orochimaru, followed by the chaos of the Nine Tails, the village has lost 3 Kage-class combatants, Orochimaru, 4 generations Naruto, and Nine Tails' Jinchuriki, as well as a large number of ninjas, which can be said to be a great loss. And according to the information sent back by the spies lurking in several other major ninja villages, these ninja villages seem to be plotting something after learning that Mai has suffered heavy losses. Chapter 19. Naturally, Hyojin had no way of knowing what happened in Naruto's office. He had just completed the A-level mission and was now walking toward his home. Long ago, Hyojin's parents died in the war, but because he was born in the Hyuga clan, he was sheltered by the clan, so his life was much better than that of other ninja orphans in the village. At the very least, he had a house of his own left behind by his parents. Back home, Hyojin noticed that the house was spotless. Obviously, when he was out on a mission, someone had been cleaning the house for him, and the only one who would clean the house for him was Yuru, who was engaged to him. The engagement was made when Hyojin's parents were still alive, so after the death of his parents, Yuru's family took good care of him and completely regarded him as a family. Closing the door, Hyojin took out the secret technique of physical regeneration obtained from Orochimaru. After some careful study, he barely understood the principle of this secret technique. Simply put, it is the use of a very special technique to stimulate the cells in the body with chakra, accelerating cell division, in order to achieve rapid wound healing and rapid recovery of chakra. In terms of effect alone, this secret technique lives up to its name of physical regeneration, because it does regenerate the body by accelerating cell division. But Hyojin knows that the number of division of each person's cells is limited. Accelerating cell division actually accelerates the consumption of lifespan. In other words, the more frequently this technique is used, the faster the person will die. If I only occasionally use it a few times in a desperate situation, it can be regarded as a trump card. Thinking of the shortcomings of this technique, and thinking of the secret technique of undead reincarnation that Orochimaru was about to develop, Hyojin's heart skipped a beat. After Orochimaru has the undead reincarnation, his body can be changed frequently, so the shortcomings of this technique are completely overcome. No wonder Orochimaru couldn't be killed, and even Itachi could only think of ways to seal him. Not only could the flesh regeneration secret technique heal injuries quickly, but it also allowed the body to obtain a new source of chakra due to the production of new cells. Therefore, once the secret technique was cast without any scruples, the user would not be afraid of being hurt and would have a continuous supply of chakra. To others, this was no different from suicide. But for Orochimaru, who was about to develop the undead reincarnation secret technique, if he used up one body, he could just change to another. It was not a problem that could not be avoided. Thinking of this, Hyojin could not help but admire Orochimaru. Although he can't use it unscrupulously, mastering one more secret technique is not a bad thing after all. So Hyojin quickly converged his thoughts and concentrated on learning this secret technique of flesh regeneration. He doesn't know whether it was because of the physical changes brought about by the Tenseigan or because of the increase of chakra in his body. Hyojin learned the new technique much faster than before. In addition, the knowledge of the human body's meridians involved in this secret technique. He has long been familiar with it, so he soon mastered the secret technique's chakra operation method and the printing steps. After thoroughly mastering this secret technique, Hyojin did not hesitate and immediately destroyed the scroll that recorded this secret technique. He was cautious and did not want to leave any evidence against himself around him. After learning the secret technique, Hyojin pondered the problems encountered in this mission again. Whether it is Rain Wheel or the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, although they are very powerful, they can't be seen in the light and can't be used as a conventional means. Once he is accompanied by my ninja and encounters an enemy, Hyojin's means of defending against the enemy will become very poor and monotonous. This feeling of being restrained is vividly reflected in this mission. Therefore, Hyojin urgently needs a series of methods that can be seen as a daily means to defend against the enemy. Considering his identity as a member of the Hyuga clan, it is reasonable to obtain more and stronger means to defend against the enemy. Further development of Soft Fist is undoubtedly the best choice for Hyojin at the moment. It's time to try practicing Revolving Heaven. The principle of Revolving Heaven is not complicated. Before, due to the lack of chakra's amount, he has not been able to practice it successfully. Now, Hyojin's chakra amount has far exceeded that of Hyuga in the Genin period, and Hyuga can comprehend Revolving Heaven by himself. So there is no reason why Hyojin, who understands the principle and has enough chakra, cannot comprehend it. The next day, Hyojin found a small forest far away from the Hyuga clan's territory. After confirming that there was no one around, he did not waste time and immediately began to try. There are two ways to master revolving heaven. One is to master the various acupoints of the body, and the other is to have sufficient chakra amount and be able to control these chakras stably. But for Kuroda, these two obstacles were a smooth road, so it only took him a few attempts to come up with a prototype of the reverse heaven technique. This further proves that the physical changes brought by the Tenseigan to Hyojin are not only reflected in the chakra amount, such as insight, somatosensory balance, control of chakra, perception, and other aspects. He has significantly improved. Called after a sigh of relief, Hyojin wiped his sweat with a towel prepared in advance. After a morning of hard practice, he barely mastered revolving heaven. Although there is still a lot of room for optimization and improvement in the use of skills, it is not a problem to use it in actual combat. After mastering the secret technique of physical regeneration and revolving heaven technique, Hyojin was in a good mood, so he took a short break at noon and came to the mission center again. Like last time, the mission center is still deserted and most of the ninjas are in a hurry. Because he has a record of leading a team to complete an A-level mission, coupled with the fact that there are too many backlog tasks in the mission center, Hyojin made an exception and obtained the authority to receive A-level missions. A-level missions are generally commissioned by politicians of various countries or large forces. Under normal circumstances, only ninjas of the special Jonin level can receive them. As his body gradually adapts to the Tenseigan, Hyojin's strength is growing every day. Now he has mastered the secret technique of physical regeneration and revolving heaven. Even if he doesn't use Rain Wheel and the 3 generations Kazekage puppets, his hard strength has reached the level of a special Jonin, so it is no problem for him to take some A-level missions that are not too difficult. After a brief look at the A-level mission list, Hyojin curled his lips. At the level of A-level missions, there are very few missions that allow a single person to receive. Even if there are 1 or 2 that allow a single person to receive, there are also difficult missions such as assassination, which require Jonin or even an elite Jonin level to be sure to complete. At this time, Hyojin realized that the lack of a teammate with tacit understanding is a very big problem. Chapter 20. Turning his head, Hyojin found that the green figure holding a big tabby cat was not a stranger, but his classmate Metke, who graduated at the same time as him. At this moment, Guy was hurriedly handing the big tabby cat in his arms to the staff of the mission center. He seemed to be handing over the mission. Looking at this scene, Hyojin smiled. In the impression of Hyojin's previous life, Guy was a powerful elite Jonin, the representative of Mai's Iron Fist stream, and he was even the pillar of my Jonin in the later stage. But in this life, the impression that Kai gave him was that he was the bottom of the class, a strong competitor who competed with Obito for the last place in school. At first, Hyojin thought that his time travel caused some deviation, but with the growth of strength and experience, now he has understood that this is not any deviation brought by his time travel. The seemingly funny kid in green in front of him will become the guy in his previous life in the near future. The reason is also very simple. Iron Fist stream is closely related to physical fitness. Without speed and strength, Iron Fist is rootless duckweed. Therefore, in childhood, because the body is not yet developed, ninjas who practice Iron Fist will be far inferior to ninjas who practice ninjutsu. This is completely the law of nature and does not involve personal talent. And once an adult, with the complete development of the body, ninjas who practice Iron Fist stream will quickly enter the peak period, catching up with the orthodox ninjas who practice ninjutsu. What's more, Guy also has the secret technique Hashimen Tanku passed down his family. So as he grows older, this once last place in school will inevitably bloom with a different brilliance. When he thought of Guy's Hashimen Tanku's secret technique, Hyojin couldn't help but feel a little eager. Hashimen Tanku's secret technique is generally only passed down from father to son, master to apprentice, or between close friends. Perhaps the village also has Hashiman Tonka's secret technique, but with Hyojin's current status, it is obviously unrealistic to obtain Hashiman Tonka's secret technique from the official channels of the village. So Guy in front of him has become the best way for Hyojin to obtain Hashiman Tonka's secret technique. As for how to befriend Kai, this was not a problem for Hyojin, because there was a ready-made example, and that was Kakashi. As long as he was like Kakashi and made himself Guy's eternal rival, Hyojin wouldn't even need to take the initiative to do anything. Guy would come to him on his own. After making up his mind, Kuroto came in front of Guy and said with a slightly contemptuous expression, "I remember that you're already a Chunin. Why are you still doing the task of looking for cats and dogs, Genin?" Guy also recognized Hyojin and immediately scratched his head in embarrassment. "Ahaha, I just happened to find it while I was training, so I gave it to you." Staring at the cat's scratches on Guy's face, Hyojin chuckled and said, "Is it because no one is willing to team up with you, so you can't accept the high-level quest?" After being mercilessly exposed by Hyojin, Guy suddenly drooped his head and said with some frustration, "Everyone thinks that I don't know how to use ninjutsu, so they don't want to take me on a mission." Sure enough, with a chuckle, Hyojin said lightly, "So, there is no future for Iron Fist." Guy raised his head abruptly and shouted, "I will definitely prove to everyone that even if I don't know ninjutsu and jinjutsu, an Iron Fist ninja can also become a real ninja." Naive. With a cold snort, Hyojin said slowly, "It seems that I need to let you realize the reality. Come with me. I will let you understand that our Hyuga family's soft fist is the true essence of taijutsu." Guy was taken aback when he heard this. He didn't expect Hyojin to be willing to compete with him. After graduating from school, ninjas rarely compete with each other unless they are very close friends or members of the same clan, because the competition will inevitably reveal their own ninjutsu, taijutsu, jinjutsu, and other aspects of information, and once these information about one's own strength is grasped by the enemy, it is easy to be targeted, and the consequences will be unimaginable. After taking Guy to the remote grove where he practiced revolving heaven in the morning, Hyojin stopped. "Let's do it here." At the thought of being able to compete with Hyojin, who came from a wealthy family, Guy was full of energy. He gave Hyojin a thumbs up, showing his big white teeth, and said happily, "Kuroto, this is the youth I yearn for." Hyojin still had a cold face, and he waved at him impatiently, indicating that he could start. Guy stopped talking nonsense, and his figure turned into an afterimage and rushed toward Hyojin. Bang! The two sides' fists and palms collided, making a low muffled sound. So fast, Hyojin was secretly shocked in his heart. Guy's straight punch was fast and heavy. If he had the Tenseigan, he would have fallen into a passive position with this move. Not daring to underestimate the enemy anymore, Hyojin immediately cheered up. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the two figures engaged in a fierce battle in the forest. The key to the Iron Fist is fast, accurate, and hateful. So if the insight is insufficient, the average ninja can't keep up with the rhythm of the Iron Fist ninja. The short fight between Sasuke and Shaoli before the Chunin exam is the most typical example. However, the current Suijin isn't Sasuke, and the Tenseigan isn't something that can only be matched by the Sharingan of the two Magatama. So although Guy's speed is very fast, Suijin quickly adapted to it. At this moment, under the ink-colored goggles, Hyojin's sapphire blue Tenseigan is shining brilliantly. The flow of chakra in Guy's body, the contraction and contraction of muscles in various parts of the body, and even the trajectory of the gravel flying caused by stepping on the ground can't escape the insight of the Tenseigan. Guy's rapid speed gradually became slow under this pair of eyes, as if the time of the two sides is not in the same flow rate. The battle continued. On the scene, Hyojin looked more and more relaxed. But in fact, every time he parried, every time he blocked, Hyojin has suffered. He really didn't expect that in just a few years, Guy's strength has become so great. Even just parrying and blocking faintly made him feel difficult. And Guy, who entered the battle state, changed his previous funny temperament, and his whole person became cold, and there was a natural majesty between his movements. After a series of continuous attacks, reducing Hyojin's dodging space, Guy immediately shouted, "My whirlwind!" Brush, Guy's whole person is really like a green whirlwind, fiercely blowing towards Hyojin. Hyojin, who can't avoid it, did not choose to retreat and directly stirred up the chakra in his whole body and met it with a soft fist. Bang! There was another low, muffled sound, and Guy was bounced out and fell to the ground hard. Although the battle between taijutsu ninjas is not as big as the battle between ninjutsu ninjas, the competition is much more intense than the battle between ninjutsu ninjas. In that blow just now, if Hyojin hadn't sealed several acupoints in Guy's legs with a soft fist, blocking the meridians in Guy's body that instilled chakra into his legs, I'm afraid that he would be the one who was hit. Although his heart was thumping and his arms were very sore, Hyojin still maintained the indifferent expression on his face and mocked against his will. It seems that you haven't made any progress in the past 2 years. Chapter 21. Hyojin put one hand on his waist and imitated Orochimaru's demeanor. He chuckled and said, "I don't feel any joy being praised by a weakling like you." Guy, who was lying on the ground, immediately lowered his head. Seeing that Guy was a little depressed, Hyojin thought to himself, did I overdo it? Just as Hyojin was about to comfort Guy in a roundabout way, Guy suddenly put away his depressed expression and said loudly, "I'm the proud dark blue beast of Mai. One day, I will definitely catch up to you." I was thinking too much. Hyojin thought to himself and said, "Hey, that wasn't your full strength just now, right?" Guy immediately jumped up. "Of course, I have my own ultimate move." Kuroto put his slightly swollen and numb arms behind his back and said contemptuously, "So it's your ultimate move? Then show it to me." After a slight hesitation, Guy shook his head. Hyojin wanted to force Guy to use the 8 inner hidden gates, so he deliberately said, "Why? Are you looking down on me?" Guy quickly waved his hand and explained, "Father said that this is a forbidden technique that can never be used on companions. Although your father is a respectable ninja, I don't think you have any forbidden technique that can hurt me." After a pause, Hyojin continued, "You don't seem to understand the difference between us at all. You have no right to hold back when fighting with me." Guy was still a little hesitant. But this is a really powerful forbidden technique. I haven't completely mastered it yet." Hyojin stepped forward and said with an imposing manner, "Is it because your talent is better than mine? Or is it because your bloodline is better than mine? If you don't use your full strength, how can you beat me?" Staring at the stuttering Guy, Hyojin continued to pressure him. "Or you've never thought of defeating me. If that's the case, you can leave now. I have no interest in sparring with a weakling like you." After hearing this, Guy felt like he was struck by lightning. Then he slowly clenched his fists. In an instant, Hyojin sensed that Guy's aura had changed. At this moment, Guy looked at Hyojin and shouted, "Hyojin, you're right. I should use my full strength to spar with a genius from a great clan like you. Only in this way can I not waste my youth." Hyojin was confused. He thought to himself, "I'm barely related to the rich and powerful, but when did geniuses have anything to do with me? Could it be that my acting was so effective that he immediately thought that I was a genius?" Just as Hyojin was muttering to himself, Guy's aura suddenly rose. First door, open. An air current appeared around Kai's body. The second gate, the healing gate, open. The airflow gradually turned into airwaves. The third gate, gate of life, open. Chakra floated out of Kai's body as if it had a physical form. Boom! Another solid collision. Guy was bounced out by the revolving sky, knocking down 4 or 5 big trees in a row, and the sound spread far away, alarming many people in the village. Hyojin was not feeling well either. At this moment, he only felt that the blood in his body was surging, and he was dizzy. However, in just a few breaths, Guy turned over and turned into an afterimage again, stepping up in the air, mixed with the sound of bang, 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 moving quickly in the air. This, looking at Guy, who could move quickly at low altitude by stepping on the air, Hyojin immediately dispelled the idea of taking the initiative to attack, suppressed all kinds of thoughts, and focused on defense. Fortunately, Hyojin has the Tenseigan. If it was still the previous Byakugan, he was afraid that he would not even have time to launch the revolving sky. In the increasingly urgent sound of stepping on the air, Guy once again made his move. This time, he used the leaf tornado from top to bottom. Before his figure even arrived, the gust of wind had already swept the entire grove. Revolving sky. Under the Tenseigan eye, no matter how Guy concealed his attack trajectory, he could not escape Hyojin's insight. So if he completely gave up attacking and just focused on defense, Hyojin could barely grasp the opportunity to launch the revolving sky. Boom! Not surprisingly, Guy's My Whirlwind was once again blocked by Hyojin's revolving sky. Guy's whole body was bounced out like a cannonball, falling far outside the grove, and even almost hitting several villagers passing by, causing a lot of noise. In the forest, Hyojin felt that he seemed to be unable to move a step. Are my bones broken? Feeling the soreness coming from all over his body, Hyojin was secretly shocked. Chapter 22. Not long after, Guy, who had lifted the effect of Hashiman Tanku, slowly walked into the woods. Seeing that Guy had lifted the Hashiman Tanku, Hyojin was relieved in his heart, but he said coldly, "Under the perfect defense of revolving heaven, any attack is ineffective. You should also have experienced this." Guy gasped and said, "Kuroto, your Hyuga family's Byakugan and Soft Fist are really worthy of their reputation. I feel that my every move can't escape your eyes." In the state of Hashiman Tanku, his two full-strength attacks were blocked by Hyojin seemingly easily. Guy felt that even if he continued to fight, he had no chance of winning. Hyojin said indifferently, "Of course, all your attacks were seen through by me." Guy sat on the ground. "Hey, I still lost. Being able to force me to use revolving heaven, your secret technique, is indeed somewhat commendable." After a pause, Hyojin said again, "Have a good rest today. See you at the mission center tomorrow morning." Guy was stunned at first, and then he was shocked. "Ew. You are willing to team up with me for a mission? I don't like to wait for people. Don't be late." After coldly dropping a sentence, Hyojin no longer said anything and walked quickly towards his home. At this moment, his whole body was about to fall apart, and if he didn't go, he really wouldn't be able to hold it. The thick-skinned Kai didn't seem to be affected at all. He cheered and skipped home. Not long after Hyojin and Guy left one after another, a team of Umbu appeared in the woods where the two fought. After a simple survey of the scene, one of the Umbu said, "There is no trace of ninjutsu. It seems that no ninja tools were used. It was a pure physical confrontation." The leader of the Umbu said in a deep voice, "Have you determined the identity of the two sides who fought?" The Umbu member on the side replied, "Well, one is a Chunin from the Hyuga family, named Hyojin, and the other is the son of Dai, Chunin Mekkei. Looking at the marks, it seems like the Hyuga family's kid won." Looking around at the trees that had fallen to the side and the potholes of different sizes on the ground, the Black Ops squad leader said, "They made such a commotion with just their physical skills. Report to Naruto-sama. These two brats are worth paying attention to." On Hyojin's end, when he returned home, he found that Belle was cleaning the house for him, and his heart immediately warmed. Belle quickly came out to welcome him. "Welcome home, Jean." Hyojin smiled. "You've worked hard." In front of Belle, Hyojin dropped all his disguises and vigilance. If there was anyone in the village that he could trust unconditionally, it would be this innocent little girl in front of him. At this time, Ling noticed Hyojin's swollen arms and exclaimed, "How did you get injured? Come, let me bandage it for you." "It's nothing. It was an accident during a spar." Pulling Hyojin to the tatami, Ling applied medicine for him and said, "Jean, Richa-sama asked me to apologize to you and ask for your understanding. Richa is the younger twin brother of Patriarch Hyuga Hayashi, and he is responsible for assisting his elder brother in managing the members of the branch family." Hyojin was a little confused. Understand? Understand what? Ling said. Aren't you angry? Everyone thinks that you are angry with the family, so you are not willing to return to the village during this time. Hearing Ling's words, Hyojin immediately reacted. There is no doubt that the family has misunderstood. The family obviously thinks that Hyojin has a grudge against the family, complaining that the family didn't speak for him when he was involved in the Orochimaru's defection, so he alienated the family. But in fact, Hyojin has never resented the family, because he knows better than anyone that powerful families such as Uchiha and Hyuga seem to be powerful in the village. But in fact, it is difficult for them to influence the decision-making level of the village. The death of Richa in the future is a good example. In the case of justifiable defense, the family couldn't even protect the patriarch, and they needed to sacrifice the twin brother of the patriarch, Richa Hyuga, to barely survive. What ability does the family have to shelter him in the Orochimaru's defection? So Hyojin doesn't hate the family, because he knows that the family is really powerless. And alienating the family is only to protect the secret of the Tenseigan. But this misunderstanding can be used. Otherwise, alienating the family for no reason will inevitably arouse the suspicion of the village's top management. The simple Ling didn't notice Hyojin's absent-mindedness and continued. Richa-sama also said that at today's meeting, Jiraiya-sama praised you, saying that you were calm when facing the Jinchuriki of Kumo's Nibi and didn't lose the village's face. Looking at Ling's proud face, Hyojin smiled gently and asked, Did Jiraiya-sama return to the village? Ling nodded. Jiraiya-sama returned to the village today. Hyojin heard this and thought, being able to make Jiraiya give up his obsession with Orochimaru and return to the village. This shows that the trouble the village is facing is bigger than I expected. In fact, in the Third Shinobi World War, Konoha no longer had the advantage it had in World War II against the other major shinobi villages. If it weren't for the sudden emergence of Yondaime Naruto, who reversed the situation on several battlefields, the war may still be in a stalemate. Therefore, when the other great shinobi villages learned that one of the Sannin, Orochimaru, defected, and Yondaime Naruto and his wife, Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, unexpectedly died in battle, it's impossible to say that they didn't have any evil thoughts. After applying medicine to the red and swollen parts of his body, Hyojin went to bed early. Chapter 23. After flipping through a few pages, a task attracted Hyojin's attention. Exterminate the wandering ninjas in the land of fire. A-level tasks all involve battles between ninjas, so Hyojin has 3 principles when choosing a task. First, the distance must be close, because if the task location is too far away, it is easy to have accidents on the road. After all, the war has just ended, and the world is still chaotic. Second, the strength of the enemy can't be too strong. Third, the enemy's background must be simple, and they can't form a mess of hatred because of the task. Therefore, this task of exterminating the wandering ninjas in the land of fire perfectly meets the 3 principles of Hyojin's task selection. So his eyes lit up. Handing the task list to Guy, Hyojin pointed to the task of exterminating the wandering ninjas and asked, What do you think of this task? Guy replied, I have no objection. After receiving the task, the two didn't delay and immediately set off. On the way, Hyojin and Guy analyzed the detailed information about this task obtained from the task center. The entrusting party of this task is the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Recently, a group of wandering ninjas attacked several villages near the border of the Land of Fire, causing a large number of people and property losses. According to the information, this group of wandering ninjas has 5 to 7 people, and their identity is suspected to be the renegade ninjas of the Land of Mist. Because of the war, the number of renegade ninjas has increased year by year. There are some in all major ninja villages, and Mai is no exception. However, most of these renegade ninjas are entrenched in small countries without any ninja villages. It is rare to see a renegade ninja who dare to attack the Land of Fire so blatantly. Hyojin said, "The other party dares to plunder in the land of fire. Their strength is definitely not weak. Don't be careless." Kai hurriedly nodded. Seeing that Guy seems to be a little nervous, Hyojin thought for a moment and said, "Don't be too nervous. These renegade ninjas only dare to attack civilians. Their strength may not be very strong. As long as we perform normally, completing the task should not be a problem." Guy clenched his fist. "I'm not afraid of them." A few days later, Hyojin and Guy chased all the way to a village that was attacked not long ago. The village was in a mess. Corpses were everywhere, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. Wails and cries could be heard without end. Suijin came to the side of one of the survivors and asked, "We are ninjas sent by Konoha. Please tell us who attacked you." The survivor's expression was somewhat stupefied. He stared blankly at Hyojin. After a while, he replied, "I don't know who those people are. They killed everyone they saw and left after killing them." Hyojin was not affected by the tragedy of the village. He calmly asked, "How many people are there in total?" "When did he leave? In what direction?" The survivor pointed in a direction. "They went that way. I don't know how many people there are, and I don't know when they left." Hyojin looked at the direction the survivor pointed at and said coldly, "Let's chase." Guy, who was already filled with righteous indignation, nodded fiercely, "Yes." In the Hyuga clan, tracking is a basic course. Every member of the Hyuga clan who has been on the battlefield is a tracking master. Hyojin is naturally no exception, so he quickly found the traces left by the other party. After a while, the two landed in front of a quagmire. After checking the footprints in the quagmire, Hyojin said, "There are a total of 5 to 7 people, and their footsteps are a bit messy. It seems that they are in a hurry." Guy said anxiously, "What are we waiting for? Let's chase them." Hyojin shook his head and pointed to a big tree not far away. "Don't panic, look at the moss on that tree." Guy looked at it and saw half a vague footprint on the moss. He wondered, why are there footprints there? Is there someone else chasing this group of wandering ninjas? The footprints on the tree, not far away, and the footprints in the quagmire obviously belong to a different group of people. If the footprints in the quagmire belong to the group of wandering ninjas, then the footprints on the tree should belong to another group of ninjas. Since we have already accepted the task, the village should not send anyone else. So I suspect that the other group of people who are chasing these wandering ninjas should be the people of the Mist Village. Hyojin's speculation is not without a target, because according to the intelligence, this group of wandering ninjas is a traitorous ninja of the Mist Village, so it is reasonable for the Mist Village to send a hunting force to kill them. Guy was at a loss for a while, because it involves other ninja villages. Then what should we do? Hyojin pondered for a moment and immediately said firmly, "Everything that hinders us from completing the task is an enemy. But let's continue to chase." After chasing for a while, Hyojin and Guy had to stop because 2 groups of ninjas were confronting each other in front of them. There are 4 people on one side, all dressed as the assassins of the Mist Village. Only the leader does not wear a mask, but has a bandage wrapped around the lower half of his face. According to his figure and appearance, Hyojin recognized that he seems to be Momoji Zabuza, also known as the Demon Man. On the other side of the confrontation, there were only 2 people, the Umbu of Konoha. One of them wasn't big, had white hair, and although he was wearing a fox mask, Kuroto still recognized him as the genius ninja of the same generation as him, Hatake Kakashi. The 2 sides are full of gunpowder, and it seems that they will fight at any time. Seeing that another My Ninja arrived, Zabuza pulled out the long sword behind him and looked like he was about to fight. Standing on the tree branch, Hyojin put one hand on his waist and glanced at the ninjas of the Mist Village. Looking arrogant and contemptuous, he said, "Get out of here." Zabuza was furious. "Do you want to die, boy?" Hyojin ignored Zabuza and ordered, "Guy, go teach him a lesson." Guy has long been accustomed to listening to Hyojin's orders along the way, not to mention that the other side is a ninja of the Mist Village, so after agreeing, he rushed towards Zabuza. It seems that they didn't expect Hyojin to be so arrogant. The Mist Assassins and the Mai Umbu were surprised, but both sides have concerns, so they didn't immediately make a move. They just let Zabuza and Guy fight one-on-one. As a taijutsu ninja, Guy attacked from close range, not giving the enemy a chance to use ninjutsu. Zabuza seems to be very confident in his sword skills. He is not afraid of taijutsu. He waved his sword and fought with Guy. For a time, the wind from the fist and the sword flashed. At this time, Zabuza has a little reputation in the Mist Village. Although he hasn't been promoted to the Seven Swordsmen, he is also one of the best among his peers in the Mist Village. His moves are fierce and murderous. Guy is also in a period of rapid growth. His speed and strength are increasing sharply every day. He is no longer the last in the school. The battle between the two entered a white-hot state from the beginning, and the impact is getting wider and wider, causing the Mist Ninjas and the Mai Umbu to retreat a distance. Chapter 24. After the two sides retreated, the scene suddenly quieted down. Guy's face was dignified. At this moment, there were more than a dozen knife wounds on his body. Although the wounds were very shallow, and some of them only scratched the skin, he was still injured. Zabuza held the knife horizontally, panting with a ferocious expression. His ribs were kicked hard by Guy, and it seemed that several of his ribs were broken. He couldn't straighten his back for a while, and there was a dull pain when he breathed. Hyojin, who was standing on the tree, saw the opportunity and immediately said, "Guy, you go back." Guy didn't argue and silently retreated to the side. Although the fight just now was short, it also let Guy weigh the weight of Zabuza. He knew that if he didn't use the forbidden technique, he might not be able to defeat his opponent. He gently fell from the tree branch to the ground. In front of both sides, Hyojin walked towards Zabuza and said, "I'm different from Guy. I don't need to be too serious to deal with trash like you." His tone was flat, and his expression was contemptuous, as if he was facing a cat or dog that didn't need to be too concerned. Why had Zabuza ever been so despised? He suddenly became furious. "You dare to call me a trash?" Swish, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he rushed over. He was waiting for this moment. Although Zabuza was angry, he was not a rookie. He knew that he had been tricked, and he immediately shut up. He held the long knife in his hand and slashed at Hyojin. Swish! The wind brought by the long knife made a sharp sound. But Hyojin was not afraid at all. No one noticed that at this moment, the Tenseigan under his goggles was shining with a magnificent brilliance. Through the unparalleled insight of the Tenseigan, he had already noticed that the chakra in Zabuza's body was rushing to his hands. At the same time, there was no chakra gathering in Zabuza's legs, and there was no sign of rapid contraction of the leg muscles. All of this had exposed Zabuza's tactical intention. Zabujan's horizontal slash was clearly just to force Hyojin back. The muscles in his legs did not contract, which meant that he had not used any strength. This also meant that after the horizontal slash, there would not be any follow-up slashes. At the same time, the chakra gathered on his arms indicated that after Zabuza forced Hyojin to retreat, he intended to abandon his sword and perform ninjutsu. In just this short instant, Hyojin was able to predict no more chops' next move through the flow of chakra, as well as the minute changes in his four limbs muscles. Hence halt. Leaning back, Hyojin's entire set of movements was completed in one breath. While he easily avoided Zabuzan's horizontal slash, his figure did not pull away from Zabuzan at all. Yesterday, Kuroto learned a piece of news from you that due to the serious shortage of manpower in the village, the higher-ups have decided to select a group of special Jonin ninjas. And this time, Hyojin was determined to get his hands on this promotion opportunity. Once he becomes a Tokubetsu Jonin, his identity and status will change dramatically. One must know that his current status is that of a chunin who was promoted in batches during wartime. In terms of status, it is not comparable to a chunin who was promoted normally. Therefore, if he becomes a Tokubetsu Jonin, it would be equivalent to crossing 2 levels in a row and suddenly surpass all chunin ninjas, completely getting rid of the fate of cannon fodder and becoming one of the high-level combatants in the village. Moreover, after becoming a Tokubetsu Jonin, he can submit a request to the village to learn high-level ninjutsu or even secret techniques. In the beginning, 4 generations exchanged for the opportunity to learn the Flying Thunder God technique through his merits on the battlefield, thus laying the foundation for him to advance to the Kage level. After tracking all the way, a few hours later, Hyojin and Guy finally found the group of wandering ninjas. There were a total of 5 people, all dressed like mist ninjas. The leader had his hair in a bun, and there was a cinnabar red dot on each of his eyebrows. It seems that he is from the Kagaya clan. Hyojin whispered, "It seems to be the Kagaya clan from the bone vein. Be careful." Guy nodded cautiously. Famous bloodline inheritance families were not to be trifled with. Guy, who had experienced war before, knew this very well. The Splendor Knight clan of Hidden Mist was famous for their strength and madness. They were the type of fiends that everyone avoided on the battlefield. The Kagaya clan ninja on the opposite side laughed and said, "Didn't I send you 2 kids to kill us?" The other wandering ninjas also laughed, and one of them said, "I heard that Mai's Naruto was killed in his own village not long ago. It seems that Mai is really finished." Hyojin looked around with the Tenseigan, and after confirming that there was no one nearby, he had an idea in his heart. The bone vein of the Kagaya clan, coupled with their superb taijutsu, is almost a combination of offense and defense. Ordinary taijutsu and weapons are useless against them. Even soft fists may not be able to penetrate the bone armor of the bone vein. Therefore, the Kagaya clan is very good at restraining taijutsu ninjas, and unfortunately, both Hyojin and Guy are taijutsu ninjas. Because of this, Hyojin decisively decided to use Rain Wheel Pull to attack the leading Kagaya clan ninja, and quickly sealed his chakra with soft fists so that he can't use bone vein. After making up his mind, Hyojin deliberately showed weakness and said, "This is the territory of the country of fire. Please leave immediately." Chapter 26. Guy doesn't have any Kekiai Genkai, but his insight isn't weak. Hyojin, using rain, pull at such a close distance, naturally can't hide from him. But he didn't think too much about it. Hearing Hyojin say that it's a secret technique, he immediately praised, "I didn't even notice when you used it. Your secret technique is really powerful." Rain pull is the same as Pain's Shinra Tensei. It's strong in that it doesn't require hand seals and can be activated at will. For those who don't know, it's very easy to fall into the trap when encountering it for the first time. At that time, even a master as strong as Sasori had his 3 generations of Kazekage puppets taken away by Hyojin, instantly reversing the situation of the battle. At this time, Hyojin put away his smile and said seriously, "Remember, this is my secret. Don't reveal it to others, not even to your companions in the village." Protecting the secret of Rain Pull is also one of the reasons why Hyojin didn't choose to capture the target alive, but to kill him on the spot. Guy nodded. "I understand. I won't tell anyone." For this guy, Hyojin is still quite at ease. Although he looks a bit funny, he is actually a very well-behaved ninja. Returning to the village, Hyojin and Guy went straight to the mission center. After handing over the mission center once again increased the authority of Hyojin's squad, opening all high-level A-level missions, including assassination to Hyojin. Because this time, Hyojin completed the mission very well. Not only did he quickly eliminate all the mission targets, but he also brought back the corpse of a Mist Village Kekiai Genkai ninja. It can be said that he exceeded the requirements of the mission. The corpse of a ninja is, to a certain extent, a source of information. Especially the corpse of a Kekiai Genkai ninja. The research value is even greater. So during the war, the major ninja villages have formed a capable body collection team specifically responsible for collecting the corpses of Kekiai, Genkai ninjas left on the battlefield for research. In the next few months, Hyojin and Guy transformed into mission maniacs and completed 2 A-level missions and 5 B-level missions with the identity of Chunin. With an efficient completion rate, they became the topic of conversation in the village. The receptionist at the mission center started to filter out missions for Hyojin, making things more convenient for him. After completing another B-rank mission, Hyojin, who was on his way home, suddenly felt someone spying on him. He quietly observed his surroundings and frowned slightly. Although there are people coming and going on the streets around him, no one is spying on him in the dark. This is something that he is very sure of with his Tenseigan, but the feeling of being spied on still exists, which makes him feel puzzled. Soon, he recalled a secret technique that had been used by 3 generations. Telescope technique. After being shown off by Guy, everyone's mood is naturally not much better, and they all have the idea of competing in their hearts. So as they chatted, the topic was led to this Tokubetsu Jonin assessment. Asma glanced around, then whispered to the people around him, "I heard that there are more than 200 Chunin participating in this assessment, and there are only about 15 places for Tokubetsu Jonin." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a cold breath. More than 200 people competing for about 15 places, which is equivalent to 13 or 14 people competing for 1 place. The competition can be imagined the intensity. Irika said gloomily, "It seems that there is no hope for me." Jinjian and Gale also sighed, obviously as unconfident as Irika. Seeing Irika and the others sighing, Asuma said with dissatisfaction, "Hey, can't you guys have a little more confidence? That bastard Kakashi is already a Jonin. How can we be so dejected in the Tokubetsu Jonin assessment?" As the son of Naruto, being suppressed by Kakashi has always been a knot in Asuma's heart. Sometimes the 3 generations would even use Kakashi to educate him, which made him depressed. Guy, who has the same knot in his heart, clenched his fists and echoed, "Yes, we must catch up with Kakashi." Hyojin took the time to observe other competitors. He roughly counted the number of Chunin participating in the assessment, but almost none of them has more chakras amount than him, so he is still very confident in himself. At this time, Uchiha Jishue came in front of him and said, "Senpai, thank you for taking care of Itachi before. He has mentioned you to me many times, saying that you are a very good ninja." Hyojin looked at him. "You are Uchiha Jishue? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.